All right. What is going on, everyone? Hopefully, I have this set up correctly because it's been a little while since I've gone live. It's been about 3 months, but I was watching this current heritage auction and there were some really wild sales that are going on this Saturday portion of it. If you're not familiar with the big heritage like platinum or signature auctions, they're broken out over a few days. They start on typically Thursday. You have the big platinum session that goes for about an hour and a half or so, like in the first part of Thursday. Then you have a larger set of books. They're still really expensive to go the second part of Thursday. Then you have original art Friday, and Saturday you have like the slightly more affordable, but still really nice expensive books. This is usually where I'm watching. This is the session where I can typically participate a little bit. But I've really just been watching. I did pick up one book. I was not really planning on it, but I ended up going for it. I did pick up one book. Um, but like there was just one book, well, two. There were two that went totally insane. I actually posted about one of them on Instagram if you follow me on Instagram. And I just when I saw that, I was like, I'd been thinking about going live for this one today. I'm like, I'm gonna go live. Like we'll talk about this. We'll watch this auction going on. This I said this in my prior recap video. This isn't really, yes, the detective. Yeah, Greg, right here. Yes, that Detective 47. And we'll go to that one, but basically it's a book that I had estimated it would go for about $4,000 and it went for over 19,000. I mean, just I don't even understand that. Like I don't even understand what. And before the live started, it was sitting at like 10. And I had messaged like a chat I'm in with Mickey and Drew, and I was like, "What is going on with this book? Like, it's already up at like 10 grand." And then I didn't really think it would get more bids in the live. Like, you think maybe it was a mistake during pre bids or something, but no, like it got bid up during the live. I mean, just it didn't make any sense to me on that book. But yeah, this has been a really fun auction to watch because there's been crazy big books, there's been strong sales, there have been some deals out there. There have been some deals too. It's not like everything is high. But it's been some pretty strong sales, and it has been a fun auction to watch. Now I'm just going to share the screen here. And so this is just so you can see, this is, if you're not familiar with the heritage auctions, this is really how they typically are presented. Now with the auctions that are on the Thursday and Friday sessions, those ones are actually live auctioneers. So they have people up there that, yeah, I mean, you can tell like there's certain books they'll be up there and they'll keep pushing, until they get the number that they want, or that they can really tell that there's no other bids that are going to come in on this. Whereas this is more of what you see with the weekly auction. The Saturday session here is the automated session where it's just, countdowns, it's over when it's over, and that's it. Um, I said, I believe his name is Brian. He goes by Heritage Comics Grader on Instagram. He's one of the auctioneers for the Heritage auctions, and he does an incredible job. He really gets like, he's the type of guy that if you're selling your book, you want him up there selling your book. If you have a book you want to buy, you do not want him selling that book, because it's just your likelihood of finding that good deal is significantly reduced, it seems, when he's up there doing his thing. He does a really good job. Um, but yeah, so I'm going to jump to that. Let's see, it was Detective Comics number 47, so it was item 94057. So 94057. So if we jump to that one here, it was this book. I mean, yeah, it's a nice copy. It's a 7.0 Detective Comics 47, 1941. But I mean, if you go to GPA, and I get it, like last sale doesn't determine, next sale or anything like that. But there's still like, this is how I often make my videos where I'm talking about like surprising high sales and all that kind of thing. And sometimes there's books that just go really far outside what you expect. And so, for example, like the Promise Collection 6.5 sold 2 years ago for $2,400. Now there haven't been any sales in the higher grades for a while. So that's the type of thing where it's like, yeah, maybe there's some pent up demand, but I mean, you had it a 7.5 go for 2150 in 2018. Down in the lower grades, yeah, there was this 3.0 for 1786, but I mean, $19,200. I mean, the first Penguin came up after this one. I mean, so like first Penguin is Detective Comics 58. So that was 94060, I think. Yeah. I mean, that went for 10,200. You could have gotten a first Penguin for half the price. I mean, yeah, it's a lower grade, but like half the price. And this is a good looking copy. Like this is a really nice looking 3.0. It looks like covers detached. That's why it's a 3.0. But yeah, like there were just some sales that have been really really surprising. There was another one, and actually, like this is a book I own, so I was happy to see this really big sale for it. I have a 7.0 of this copy, and yeah, I believe me, I adjusted my price right after I saw this sale. It's $9,000 for a 7.5. I mean, this is one that I was expecting it to go for 4,500. Its prior record was 5,201. I mean, 9,000 is a lot. It's not as crazy, but it's still pretty crazy, you know. And so, but then I mean, like the 19,000, like after that, it's just I don't know if there's somebody that's really going after these techs or what. I mean, they are tough when you get up into that VF type range, but man, some serious numbers that I have been seeing out there. Um, let's see. Go check out the chat here. Yeah, appreciate everybody for joining. We've got the I wanted the Batman 3 but tapped out. Yeah, that Batman 3 was a really strong one. So it was a white page copy. Let's go check out that one here. So yeah, we had this Batman 3, a 5.0 white page copy. I mean, pretty decent looking copy. I just sold mine. I posted about it on Instagram. I just shipped it out. And this one I had going for 8,500, went for 10,800. I mean, this was again a solid sale, a record. Prior record was 5,160. This is one of my favorite covers, if not my favorite cover from the first 10 issues. I mean, I really like the solid black background action cover. And so, yeah, I mean, this one, that's more like what I might expect. You know, the book went about maybe 20%, give or take, over my estimate. That's not a real big shock. It's the like 300 or 400% over my estimates that are the big surprises. But yeah, let me know in the chat. Anybody else planning on bidding on anything that's in this one? Because yeah, I mean, I did pick up one, so I'll show the book. I had been watching this one. I I decided to go for it. It took a couple bids for me to get it. But I picked up this one, this joke. I have owned a copy of this before. I had like a 5.0, but this is a 2.5, but this is the Okajima pedigree. And if you watch my channel, you're familiar with my channel. You know, I talk about Okajima pedigrees quite a bit. To me, it is the most significant pedigree that exists out there. This is a very nice presenting 2.5 as well. You know, you've got some splitting and that kind of stuff, but the big thing with this copy is I do have my copy, that is from this time period. Like one of the things you're really looking for with Okajima pedigree copies, and I think I saw was Prince of Cheese in here. Yeah, I did. I saw Prince of Cheese in here. He is the one that I right here. He is the one that I picked up my other copy that I have. They're referred to as camp copies. This is a woman that was in one of the Japanese internment camps during World War II in the United States, and she was a comic collector. She would buy comics every week, and she continued post that time period, like into the early 50s. But the ones that are extremely collectible are the ones that are when she was in that camp, because it's a very small pedigree. Total known copies or total copies that are thought to have been in this pedigree is about 1,000, but only about 300, 350 are known. And the rest of them are largely lost to time. And so it is an extremely small pedigree. Most pedigrees are thousands of books. And so they're very tough to come by. And this one, you can see, this is the special thing with this, is it actually has the Okajima written on the cover here, which my other copy doesn't. My other copy was a black cover, and so I think that's probably why it's not written on there. But so this one, I decided to go after. They do sell for a significant premium. You're kind of just shooting in the dark, kind of guessing what they might go for. I had it I figured at least 70. I figured 7,500 is where I valued it, because I think in a 2.5 this is about $1,000 book, but you give pretty substantial multiples to this pedigree, and so I paid 5,760, and I'm very happy to have it. So yeah, this is a book that's coming to me, and I after I picked up that Black Cat 50 recently, I wasn't really planning on bidding on anything, but this one I couldn't pass up on that opportunity. But let's go back to the chat. Yeah, that Tech 47, I don't know. It feels like a huge anomaly for a couple of those. Um, hoping Ken B says he's hoping to snag some good Golden Age deals tomorrow. Yeah, that's something that's always interesting. Watching the in here, I'll flip back to the live just so we can see the books coming up. Oh, here's that Punch 11. So after that one sold, let's see what I had that one going for 1,500, and it went for 1,140. So I feel like that was probably a pretty good deal on that book. It was a record in grade. Prior record was 897. But still, I think that's a pretty cool cover. I've always liked this cover. It's definitely it's not like Punch 12 level, but you got the skull cover and that kind of thing. But yes, that is always something. Going back to Ken's comment, you've got the weekly auction that starts tomorrow, and so you always wonder, have people spent all their money, on these big signature auctions, and so you can get some deals following them. My general experience has been that the deals aren't necessarily there. Sometimes you might find some, but I think part of it is that there's often, like the people that are spending 50, 100, 200,000 on these aren't necessarily the same people that are going to go spend, 500 to a couple thousand in the weekly. And so it might be that it's different people that are spending, but I haven't found that there's like necessarily big deals. But the one thing that I do really like about those, the weeklies that come right after these big platinum or signature auctions, is that what I often find is that you do tend to get a lot of the books that you might not normally see, where it's like there were a bunch of Marvel mystery comics, for example, and a bunch of these early texts that were in here. And typically you get the high grade copies that are showing up in this auction, in this big signature auction. And you might get the slightly lower grade copies that show up in the weekly. And so you get these opportunities to pick up some books that might not normally be part of that weekly auction. Let's see. So we got a question. I've never bought on Heritage. With some of these prices, I don't believe I will be in the future. I mean, this is one of their big signature auctions that they hold like every 2 months or so, every 2.5 months. These are not low dollar auctions. I mean, if you watched my recap of that first session, the average sales price for those books was $400,000, or more than $400,000. And the average sale price, I would bet, for the books I was watching in the second part was probably somewhere in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, maybe even a little higher than that. So, because let's see, I think my total. Let's see, I've got my numbers down here. My total price for the session 2 for the books I was watching was they sold for about 2 million. I was watching around 100 books. So that's about $20,000 on average per book. So that isn't normal for these. If you're looking to kind of like dip your toe into one of these auctions, I would recommend like the Heritage Weekly auction. That's definitely a place where you have books that sell for under $100 in there. And you'll sometimes have books that sell for 30 or 40,000. You might have that AF-15 thrown in there that goes for 40 or 45,000. Let's see. I dropped out of the Planet 33. I don't think I was watching that one, but let's see if we can find that one, see where that one went. 9401. So we've got the Power Comics went for 10,200. This is a cool book. Definitely one that I was keeping an eye on. This is an interesting one because this was a crack press and regrade. I think it was a 5.5. And it got up to the 7.5. It definitely, like, you could tell it was cleaned, that kind of thing. You can see where the different issues were before, but that one got a really big bump. Plus it got that cool pedigree label. But let's jump back to some planets. So we had the Planet 33 here. I don't see this issue very often. This is one that I definitely don't see come up for sale very often. Went for $4,080. Let's check how that how that stands up. Because yeah, I mean, like with any auction, it's not like everything is always high. Sometimes you get deals, sometimes you have new records, all that kind of stuff. So an 8.0 hasn't sold for 6 years. Last sale 2,868. We got a 6.5 that went for. It looks like it had maybe a sale above 2,000 and then below. Yeah, so 2,400 and then 1886. So I mean that puts it at about $300 a point. Usually as you get up in grade, you're going to go higher and more per point. Cause like you look at this 9.4 that went for 16,800. So you try to figure out like, where might this one be? I mean, 500 a point, $4,000 seems pretty reasonable. That does seem like a pretty reasonable price to me, but yeah, I mean, it is a lot of money for a comic book, right? Like it's a lot of money for a comic book. This one you don't see very often. 6.5 too. Shadow Comics #4, this decapitation cover. Let's go back to that one. So we got Shadow Comics #4. I remember Prince of Cheese, he had one actually for sale at one point. But yeah, 6.5 is a very nice grade, 5,280. Let's check that out. Shadow #4. The Shadow Comics are an interesting run. Let's see, which is this. Okay, it is looks like it's probably volume 1. Is it 1940? Yeah. Shadow Comics is an interesting run. It's one of those that it has some really great covers that are part of it. The character is actually, from my understanding, it's what Batman was actually based on. Shadow from the pulp era. But yeah, so we've got 6,600 for a 5.5. This was a 6.5 for 5,280. Seems like a reasonable price. I mean, it sold for 4,080 back in 2021, about 2 years ago. So yeah, I'd say reasonable pickup, decent price for this one, and definitely one that you don't see in grade all that often. I mean, let's check out in the census. It's only 12 on census. There's only 2 graded higher. There's a 7 and a 7.5. So there's not going to be much better that's out there than this book. Looks like some people do not compare previous sales. I always wonder about that. I definitely feel like there are, like I've had these conversations with some people where it seems like some people spend a lot of money and they don't get like GPA or go collect or anything. Sometimes they might just check like prior solds on Heritage. You never, and some people they probably have enough money that they don't care. That could also be it. It's like that Detective Comics hadn't sold in grade. So I mean, let's jump back to that one, because that's also the other side of it, where like someone like me who is very price focused, that is one of the, if not the most important thing for me whenever I'm bidding on something. And that's because this isn't just collecting for me, it's also a business for me. So every purchase makes a difference. It matters what I'm doing there. And so I'm not someone who's generally just going to go out there and just pay like the maximum price just to make sure I get that book. But this, like, yeah, you had the 6.5 2 years ago, but other than that one, the last time, the most recent sale of any type of reasonable, like upper grade, was 6 years ago, was 5.5 years ago, August of 2018. And so you could have someone where they just go, I don't care. I'm not waiting another 6 years. And you might have 2 of those people that go, I don't care. Because obviously you need 2. It's this bidding. You need 2. And so you have 2 people that go, I don't care. And they just kept bidding against each other. And then you get these numbers. I mean, that's the thing. Like, yeah, you look at, that's the other side of it. You do always have to consider, like, some people, like, they have a lot more money, and you've got to try to put yourself in that position where $10,000, $20,000 doesn't really matter. But they want the book. And so, yeah, like you had a 4.5 in 2021. You had some of these lower grades recently, a 3.0, 2.5, 0.5. But if you want a VF type copy, it's been 6 years, and you might just say, screw it, I'm going for this one. So, and that could be also what goes on there. I wonder what these would sell for on eBay. I mean, yeah, that's definitely something. I mean, there are people that I'm sure, only like to bid on certain platforms, whether that's Comic Link or Heritage or Comic Connect or whatever. And there are a number of times where, and I was actually just talking about this in a chat with some other people, where you see books that will sell for more on a platform like Heritage, and there's one listed for less or multiple listed for less on eBay. And a lot of times, what you will see happen is that immediately after that sale on Heritage, the ones on eBay will get bought up. Like there are people that are watching it and they'll see that sale, that big high sale, and they'll go and pick those up. That's something. I mean, and I've done that. I've done that on a couple occasions. I remember back in, it was like 2020, I think, like late 2020. I was bidding against someone on a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, like a 9/6 third print, and I knew there was one on eBay, and I hadn't wanted to pay the price on eBay, but then the one on Heritage I was bidding against kept getting bid up even above the eBay one. So I was just like, forget it. I'm just going to buy the one on eBay. So I stopped bidding. I went over to eBay and I bought it. I mean, that does also happen. Not everybody watches every platform. Not everybody is aware of every platform. Some people don't trust buying on certain platforms versus others. So there is something to say with that as well. Let's see. Was the cap 33 above or below what you expected? Well, let's see. So I had the cap 33 going for 6,300. So let's see, what was the number on that one? That was 94034. And it went for 6,300. There we go. I hit that one dead on. So it went for exactly what I thought it would. This is a cool cap cover as well. You know, you got the Brenner pass, you've got Captain America and Bucky jumping in. I talk about the machine gun Bucky all the time. I really like those covers, the Nazi World War II covers where Cap and Bucky are flying in on the cover. Definitely a cool one. So yeah, went for exactly what I thought it would. Let's see here. Give me one moment. Trying to. All right. So let's see. Oh, Alan, you got a nice Okajima book. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, make sure to go check out Comic Collector Geek if you aren't subscribed or you haven't checked out his channel before. He always has really good content. I always like to reference his interview that he did, where one of the kind of like original editors of Bongo Comics with The Simpsons confirmed that Bender was based, or was at least partially based, on the cover by Alex Schomburg and Startling Comics 49. I think that's just so cool that got confirmed there. So I always like to mention that one. Jay Bill says, feels like it was a feeding frenzy during the Platinum Heritage auction this week. A little bit of mass hysteria and fabricated FOMO caused higher than normal bidding. The auctioneer is very good. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say fabricated FOMO, but I would say there was some serious bidding going on. I mean, I feel like there's real FOMO. Like there's definitely cases like that. I actually just filmed a video that I have coming out tomorrow where I talked about that some with, and you know, so maybe you'll get a little preview here of that one. Let me find the book I was talking about. It was this one right here. 92053. So is this one, you know, Marvel Mystery Comics #9. This is one of like the Alex Schomburg books. If you're an Alex Schomburg collector, this is, I mean, not only it's a pretty scarce book, but it's considered like this fire versus water cover where you've got Human Torch versus Submariner. Very expensive book, in demand book. Now, this went for 20,400, which was near double what I thought it would go for. This one looks like it can get back to a Universal, which is why it has, I think, a little more value. But I figured you'd want to be safe. Like maybe it gets a 1 or a 1.5. I mean, maybe you can get up higher grade, but you're taking a pretty big risk there. So I had it going for 11,000. Wouldn't have been surprised if it went for a little more than that, but this went for 20,400. And right before it, 3.0 Universal 28.8. I mean, this one felt like, because this one went low in my opinion. I had this one going for 33, and I wouldn't have been surprised if it went for more. And so this one went for 28.8, and I feel like some people that didn't bid here really regretted it right afterwards. and they went after that or the restored copy, and that one got bid up much higher than I was expecting. And so that, to me, that isn't necessarily like, it's not like fabricated FOMO, but that is FOMO in the moment where you're like, oh crap, I should have put in one or two more bids on that other one and I didn't. And now you've got people fighting over this, the restored book. I think that's probably what happened with that one. Never watched a live before. Interesting to hear. The people in the room sounded like only a few people actually. Yeah, I've they don't generally show like the people that are in the room. I don't know how many sit in there during it. I know there are people that are on like phones talking to people that are like call-in bidders. But you can see, like, based on, like, if you're ever watching them live, I typically can't. But if you're ever watching them live, you can see like the type of bid that comes in. It shows it on the screen. I mean, most of the time, I think a lot of it is people bidding over the internet. But they definitely have, like, there's some people that they want to be on the call, they want to be on the phone, and that ensures that you're not going to get like a countdown beating you. If you're on the phone talking with someone. But that's why I say, like, just throw your bid out. Like, don't, like, with the automated auctions, you can wait for the countdown. So if you're not familiar with these, so we can sit here and we can look at this, and you see how, well, we'll wait until we get to where there's no more bids coming in. But once there's no more bids coming in, it'll start doing a countdown, and it'll be like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you can bid at the last second if you want. And that's similar to like Comic Connect. Comic Connect has a countdown, and you can bid, and then it adds more time back in. There's no sniping here, and so it adds more time, like about 10 seconds back in, and then it'll start counting down again. Then if it gets down again, you can bid. But with the live auction, it's not as certain on the internet bidding side. You're listening to someone, that's being projected over the internet, but you might get cut off and not really realize it if you try to wait to the last second. So if you're doing the live bidding and you're online, you probably just want to throw in your bid when you're ready, not try to play any games, waiting until the last minute. Whereas with the automated ones, you can wait till the last second all you want. Now there are risks with that. And someone I was talking to yesterday, I think it was yesterday, had that happen to them in the platinum session or the second session, and I've had it happen to me before. If you risk waiting for that countdown and you go like, I'm going to bid at the last second, if someone else bids like a half second before you, the price jumps up, and then you click, you have now put in the higher bid, and now you may have just bid more than you really wanted to. And then you're hoping someone else like bids over the top of you. I've definitely won books a couple times like that I paid more than I had wanted to because I waited till that last second, which is why I don't do that anymore. If I'm going to bid, I know my price, and I'm going to click the bid button. I'm not waiting until that last second on these, because that can really sting if you throw in that bid and it, oh yeah. And so here you go. Here's that countdown. So you can see it was counting down, and somebody threw in a bid, so the countdown timer went away. It went back up to, I don't know if it's like 10 seconds or what it is. And then, nobody's bid for a little bit, so you're going to get a countdown again. And so now you've got it counting down. And if you wanted to bid, you could click there before it hits 0. And but since nobody bid, lot closes, moves on to the next one. Yeah, Bitcoin also. Yeah, I don't really follow Bitcoin, but I've heard it's rocketing back up. So who knows? Maybe we've got some people spending their Bitcoin money. And got a question here, Ryan. Did you win the Tech 85? Yes, yes, I did. I showed that earlier. I've got so many books I'm watching. I'm trying to. Yeah, the Tech 85 Okajima pedigree. Yes, that is. I showed that earlier on. That was, let's jump to the lot here. 94066. Yes, you can see you won this lot. So yes, I won this one. This is going to go onto the keeper list. It definitely, the first time I've had an Okajima that actually has Okajima written on the book. So I think that's pretty awesome. And it's got the gold label, so I don't have to bother sending it back in to get the gold label. And yeah, let's jump back to the live. Let's see. We're on 94167. Wonder what the next book is I'm watching that's coming up. So there's a Shock Suspense 5 that I'm watching that's coming up 94175. Um, oh, Greg said he won the Planet 35 for 4,800. Nice. Yeah, congratulations. And Comic Collector Geek, I think you must be talking about where you watch something on eBay, or you're watching something on eBay go for the same time as on Heritage, and it gets that big sale on Heritage, and you go grab it on eBay. Yeah, I like I said, I did that with that TMNT. I've done it with an Amazing Spider-Man book before, and maybe a couple others. But yeah, I'm also generally watching the books that I have listed. Now, like I said, I had that Tech 43 listed, and I raised my price when I saw that big $9,000 sale for a 7.5. But yeah, I mean, who knows? That could be the fluke sale. Nobody cares, and you end up lowering the price again, anyways. But figured the that is something I've really noticed is early techs have been getting a lot of attention lately, more so than early Batmans. I don't know why. I mean, I tend to like the covers from the techs more than the Batmans. The Detective Comics covers tend to be a little more serious. And the Batman covers are a little more like bright and cartoony. And so I don't know if that's the reason why. I haven't really looked at like what the census difference is between some of them. I mean, the texts are often earlier. So that could be it. It's probably lower census and all of that too. But yeah, I have definitely that is a trend I have noticed over the last maybe 4 or 5 months, is that early Detective Comics have been getting more and more expensive. A lot of demand for them. It still does not justify that Detective Comics 47 sale. That was wild. Um, that was a big one. Then we've got a question here. Can I cover More Fun 71? I wasn't watching that one. I was watching a More Fun 63. I'm gonna disable the live bidding just so I don't accidentally bid on something. But let's go find that one because it's probably somewhere around there. So More Fun 63 was 94120. So let's see where 71 was. So there's 65. There's 71. So we've got a Dr. Fate cover. And I mean, me personally, I mean, I think I've maybe said this before. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the More Fun books. I'm not a big fan of the Spectre. I don't like the art. I know it's like heresy for for Golden Age for Golden Age collectors, but that is my taste. I know people absolutely love those Spectre covers, but I don't think they're very good. So, take it for what it is. I'm not a huge fan of those ones, but let's see. So we've got a 7.5. I mean, yeah, just crazy grades. 7.5, More Fun 71. Is this the pedigree? It is not the pedigree. So the last sale, I mean, was 3,000 in 2014. We had a 6.0 go for 5,000 in 2022. So if we go back to 2013, this book, and this is one of the ways that I approach pricing. So if you're kind of wondering how I price some of these, we had this book go for, in a 6.0, go for 1,435 in 2013. It went for a little more than 3 times that by 2022. So my rough estimate would be that this one might go for about 9,000. What did it go for? It went for 10,800. I mean, that's in the ballpark, right? So with books like this, where you've got, I mean, look at this, like 2 sales in the last 2 years, in some pretty like random grades, otherwise not many sales. I mean, all you're really trying to do is get in the ballpark, get close. And so, yeah, I figured I would figure around $9,000 went for 10,800. I mean, yeah, it's 20% over my estimate, but that's in range. Like, it's not like this isn't a shocking sale to me. I think that's an expected price that you might expect for a book like this. And yes, Bill Morrison was who Comic Collector Geek interviewed. Let's see. So I just saw that Bender comic for the first time this morning. Maybe we saw the same video. Yeah, that is, it is probably my favorite cover from the Golden Age. It's It's not the most expensive book from the Golden Age, not by a long shot, but I really like Alex Schomburg, and I like his airbrush work, and that one. And yeah, I mean, we can go show that book. It is on my keeper list, and very firmly on my keeper list. I recently upgraded to a 4.5. That was what I picked up this last year. But yeah, let's take a look at a super high grade copy. The Edgar Church 9.6. So here's Startling 49, done by Alex Schomburg. You've got the sci-fi cover with the robot. You've got the good girl art type cover with the woman in the red dress, and you've got this robot that just it looks like Bender. I mean, everybody just when you see it, you're like, if you are familiar with Futurama, you're like, that looks like Bender. And what I had read for a while, and this is why I felt that interview with Bill Morrison was so interesting, was that a lot of people would say, oh no, it's just coincidence. It's not actually like he didn't, Bender isn't tied to this in any way. It was just coincidence. And that was generally what I heard out there. And you're just like, it can't be, it's just like, it looks so similar. And then in that interview, he had said that Matt Groening was actually a big fan of this cover. And correct me if I say anything wrong, you're a comic collector geek, or Alan, but yeah, he said he was a big fan of this cover and was part of the inspiration for Bender. And so I thought that was, that to me, that adds a lot to that book. And, for me personally as well, but the way that, and this is what I would maybe recommend, like for anybody that's out there is collecting, for how you decide maybe what you like or what you want to collect. One of the things that was really helpful for me with this book specifically was I was with a friend, and they happen to have. It's actually I own his Startling 49 now, so he actually upgraded to a higher grade copy, and I got his. But he had a lot of he has a lot of very nice books, and he had them out on a table together. And so I saw all these books together, like a bunch of really great keys, things like Mask 1 and Mask 2 and Captain America 74, and all this kind of stuff, like Chamber Chills 19. And this one was on there too, not this specific book, but this cover. And even with all those mega keys out there, like AF15, Tales of Suspense 39, all that stuff, this one stood out to me. Like this was the one that drew my eye in, and I loved it. So yeah, that was, if you're like a cover collector, like I am I like, I mean, keys can be important, but I am really like, the cover art is what really gets my attention. And so if you have a book that's a big key and it has a crappy cover, it's probably not really going to appeal to me that much. But if it has it has a great cover, it's really going to get my attention. And so for me, it's one of the greatest covers that was ever done. But just my take. Let's jump back to the auction. Okay, so here's that Shock 5. So I had the Shock 5 going for 2,500. It's up at 3,000. So, pretty solid sale. It's never sold in grade before. So it's a record regardless. But to me, like when I have an estimate on a book and it has never sold before, and it also then beats my estimate, that's more significant to me than if it's never sold before and it fails to hit my estimate. Because I'm not basing that estimate on nothing. Even though the 9.2 has never sold, other grades have sold around it. So you can make some pretty educated guesses about what that book might go for. So yeah, so when they beat the estimate like that, I mean, 20% over, seems like a pretty strong sale. I don't have another one for a few coming up. There's a Matt Baker that's coming up. Teenage Romance is number 11. Let's see what this Matt Baker went for. There was a Pictorial Romances 94137. So this one went, crazy to me. Like this one actually went low. Like every Baker, especially high grade that I've seen come up for sale, has been just hitting crazy number after crazy number. And to actually see one go below my estimate and not a record. I mean, the prior record in grade was 2,640. I had this one going for 1,800 because I thought that was maybe a little bit high because there were some other sales as well. Going for 1,440. I mean, that feels like a steal. I mean, I'm wondering if I know who bought that because I know one of the guys I talked to on Instagram is a big Baker collector, and I wonder if he bought this one because that seems like a really good price, especially with what we've seen with other Bakers. So, for example, let me see if I can find it. I talk about this one in my video too. It was this one right here, 92065. This one, Pictorial Romance is number 12, 85. It's a double cover, so it's got that going for it. Top front cover's an 80, inside cover's an 85. 14,400. I mean, I had this going for 9 grand. I think this is single. Is this single highest graded? Yeah, single highest graded. I had this one going for 9 grand, and I thought I was being like pretty aggressive high on that one. And it was just because I'd seen some other books that some other Baker romance books in that grade range that when they're top of census, like 7.5 to 8.5, going for anywhere from about 5,000 to 10,000. And so I had it going for 9 grand because it's not, to me, this isn't like the best cover. It's a pretty like it's not anything like really intriguing to me about this cover, which is what you're looking for with Bakers. But geez, like 14,400, just massive, like massive sale for that one. So yeah, that's why this one really surprises me that it literally went for 10 times less. I would have thought, at least like the 1800 I had it at, and I wouldn't have been surprised if it went for more. So I think probably whoever picked this up got it for a pretty good price because yeah, that one is surprising to me. Let's see. We've got some Submariners that are a few restored Submariners. We've got let's see, what's this? We had a Submariner number 160 restored, went for 7,800. I mean, that feels pretty cheap. I mean, let's check that out. Let's see what the restoration is. So C3, color touch, pieces added, glue, tear seal, spine split, sealed, reinforced. In theory, all those things can be undone, but C3 is a lot. You may be just butchering this book if you wanted to try to get it back to a Universal. So it's one of those where it's like, do you really want to do it? Do you want to make the book look terrible as a result of getting it back to a Universal? But let's take a look at that. And if anybody wants me to check out any comics that are on here, let me know. I'll try to catch back up on the chat again. But let's after I look at this one. So we've got a restored. Has this one ever sold? We have a 60 A3. So I don't see a 60 C3 on here. But a 60 unrestored last went for 31,000. Let's see what the straight restored books have gone for. We had an A475 go for 12,000 in 2022. 70 trimmed go for 15,000. We had an A3 go for 15,600 in 2021. A 60. We had a 40 trimmed C1 go for 10,000. Like, this is the one that makes me think this was a pretty good pickup, because the trimmed you're never getting back out of. You're never getting out of a trimmed book. It's stuck. It is what it is. And that one for 10,500. So, I mean, this one going for 7,800 feels like a pretty good pickup. I don't know. I mean, it feels like a pretty safe buy, in my opinion. Now, Submariner has definitely lost a little bit of kind of like his demand since the last Black Panther movie. Definitely that had impacts on prices. Like, prices did go up on Submariner books, even from the Golden Age, because of that movie. And so that could be that we're seeing a little bit of a correction there, but still, I think that didn't seem like a bad buy at all. We've got some early Superman here now too. We got a Superman 575 go for 10,200, and a 10 go as bidding right now. Now, this is the tough thing. Like, this is why, like, I can't price out every book. What I do when I am looking at these auctions, because there's so many books in these auctions, and when you have these big signature or platinum auctions, they're almost all like mega keys, or at least like grades that makes them mega keys. And so if these had been in any weekly auction, any of them probably I would have been watching. But I have to be a little bit more picky when it comes to these platinum auctions, because I only have so much time to dedicate to pricing the stuff out. So for this auction, I still priced out over 200 books, but I just didn't have I don't have time to price out like 800 or whatever the total number of books that are part of this thing. So you have to be a little bit more picky about which ones you actually want to watch. And for me, I focus on the ones that I like the covers more, or I think are more significant. And so I wasn't really watching any of those Superman books. But I'm gonna check out some more of the comments here. How much do you think that spine tick cost the ASM 198? I mean, I don't think it costed anything. So I mean, I had estimated 1.5 million. It went for 1.38, but I think, like I said in my video where I talked about that one, uh, it it wasn't really like it was a disappointing sale. I mean, it has never sold in a 9.8 before. The sale that we're referencing, and yeah, we can let's go check that one out. Let me just find the number here. So it's 91026. Just for anybody in the chat that doesn't know what we're referencing here, we have this Amazing Spider-Man #1 curator pedigree. This was one of the big premiere books that sold in this auction. I think this was the third highest sale item. The Superman one went for like 2.34 million. The All-Star 8 went for 1.5 million, and this is 1.38. I don't think there was anything else above that. But this was a 9.6. Someone cracked it out, got the 9.8. And the thing that that he's referring to in the chat is this spine tick right here. And this is one of those things where it's like when you zoom in, it looks, and this is what I'm trying to say, like there's a lot of talk out there where some people are like, oh, I don't think it can't be a 9.8. It has a spine tick. That is not true. You can absolutely have spine ticks in a 9.8. It is not a 9.9. It is not a 10.0. You can absolutely have spine ticks in a 9.8. Typically, one is about what you're going to get away with. Sometimes you'll get away with two that are color breaking. You can have more if they're non-color breaking, like those little light indentation things. You can have a little bit more, but color breaking, you can generally get away with one, sometimes two. And it also does vary on the age of the book. Like if this was a modern, yeah. If you're only familiar with modern books, like modern grading, you're probably not getting a 9.8 with that. But they do not grade books, like despite what anybody might say, like gold, silver, bronze, modern. Like you get slightly different grading, like little things you can get away with more in the older books than you can in the newer stuff. It is the way it is. And this is a stunning book otherwise. And so it's like, yeah, like some people like don't like that there's like a little like roughness in the corners. That's totally allowed. Like that's bindery defects. Like roughness in the corners is totally allowed. This book, like you're just going along. It's like maybe you have like one that could be a light spine tick right there. Like, but like, I mean, even like, look at these staples. There's nothing, like just perfect at the staples. Yeah, you have this spine tick here, but otherwise, like, this is a super clean book. Like, I don't think there's anything. We kind of joke, like about it's like, oh, it's like, is this actually a 9.8? But I mean, I do think that this is a 9.8 book. Now, when you're getting up into books like this, or when you're getting into grades like this, and I mean, and even when you're going down in maybe like 8.85s, that kind of stuff, down into that range, you're almost always going to have like it's a weak 8.0, it's a strong 8.5, or it's a weak 9.6, it's a strong 9.8. And that's generally how you can have people that will, they'll get a book. And I'm not saying CGC doesn't ever get it wrong. There are definitely times they get it wrong and somebody makes a mistake and that kind of thing. That happens. I'm not just trying to defend CGC there, but if you're talking about like half grade differences, and you can easily have books that are this like in that between range where, like strong 9.6, weak 9.8, like you might call this one a strong 9.6, weak 9.8. You submit it a couple times. One time you get a 9.6, another time you get a 9.8. And that is something you need to consider as well. Like when, like Mickey was talking about this on his video as well. We were joking about it in our chat. It's like buy the grade, not the book. That's the saying, right? Even like everybody says buy the book, not the grade, but almost nobody does. Nobody follows that. I mean, it's just it is the way it is. Like people buy the grade. And I'm sure there are some exceptions, like some people that will, they buy the book, not the grade. But when they're in the slab, people buy the grade. And so it just is what it is. And yeah, I mean, this book, maybe on another day it gets a 9.6, and I wouldn't be shocked by that. but I don't think it's not a 9.8. It's probably a 9.7, you know, but there is no 9.7. And so, so it gets, you know, it's like someday you get a 9.8, someday you get a 9.6. That's just how I kind of feel about that. I think sometimes there's a little too much like hand wringing on some of this kind of stuff, and you just have to you have to go into it understanding this, that this is probably a 9.7, but there's no 9.7. And so I don't disagree with a 9.8, and I wouldn't disagree with a 9.6. You know, and that's why there are definitely people out there that like they'll have a 9.6 that they think looks good, and they might submit it 4 or 5 times to try to get that 9.8. That absolutely happens. And so I know that's why people do get really upset about, you know, how much someone will pay for a 9.8 versus a 9.6. But I mean, my take on that is it's like, it's not your money. Why do you care? Right? Like, let people collect what they want to collect. If someone wants to collect it and go for 9.8s and they're willing to pay that, even though maybe it's a 9.7 or a 9.65 or something, like, who cares? Right? Like, it's not your money. Like, who cares what it, you know, what someone else pays for that book. But yeah, that's my little soapbox I just got on here to rant a little bit about the grading on the, you know, like that. I don't think there's big controversies, or, you know, like I think a lot of people think that there's always some like hidden agenda, you know, or this kind of thing. And it's just, I don't see it that way. I just think that, you know, you could probably submit this book 10 times and maybe 6 times it gets a 9.6 and 4 times it gets a 9.8, you know, something like that. Here we go. What do you think about Tech 69 sale given the Joker 2 movie that is coming? I see Tech 69.5 on eBay. It looks like a steal after these auction results. Let's see. Let me see how I felt the Detective Comics. Like I felt that the 7.0 actually went a little low. I thought so. If we jump to the 7.0, 92033. So this was a 7.0 that sold 25,200. I had this one going for 31. So I actually felt like this one, I mean, White Pages, I think maybe what hurt it a little bit was this note, very minor amount of color touch on cover. So this is something that if you are not like, you generally don't see this anywhere but the Golden Age. I think I've seen it maybe one time on like an X-Men 1. But you generally only see this in the Golden Age, where you have very minor amount of color touch on cover. And I showed it as well earlier in this video, where you can have a small amount of glue on cover and you can still get the blue label. I've seen some people where they're like, oh, CGC made a mistake. This was supposed to be a purple label. No. I don't know what the threshold is. You know, maybe someone would have to go talk to Matt Nelson, what the threshold is for very minor amount of color touch. If it's like a single pinpoint, you know, that they identified or something like that. But you can get this with a blue label. And that maybe that hurt it a little bit, but you'd think the White Pages would offset that some too, because especially on Heritage, I noticed like White Page books sell for a huge premium on Heritage, typically. And so I think this was a great pickup by whoever got it. I mean, 25,200. I think that was a great pickup. Now there was another one. I think it was like a 4.5, maybe. Let's see. Let me find it here. Yeah, it was a 4.5. 94062. This one went for 9,600. I had this one going for 10,000. So this one went almost right on where I thought it was going to go. So I don't think they were like super strong sales. I feel like the first one was maybe a little low. Second one was right in line. I don't know if like the Joker movie is really going to have an impact on this. I mean, the movies do definitely I mean, even Golden Age stuff gets impacted by them. I wouldn't try to like play that like flip though. You know, like I wouldn't be buying, like if you want to buy, like I really like this Joker cover. I think it's one of the best Joker covers of the Golden Age, if not the best Joker cover of the Golden Age. And so if you like the Joker, if you like this book, if you want to go into Golden Age books, like this is a relatively safe purchase within reason. Like I'm not saying go out and pay whatever. But if you look at pricing and it seems like it's kind of in line with where it's been going, pick it up. You know, if you've got the money to do it, if you like the Joker, it's one of those that I don't think that you can go too wrong with it. Let's see here. Thomas says, thanks for putting up a live Q&A for the auction. Great stuff. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I want to try to catch up to some of these comments so that I'm not like missing anything here. Um, Note to self: avoid eBay for the next week. Yeah, yeah. I mean, who knows? Yeah, people like other people might be doing the same thing as me with adjusting prices based on this auction. And Mark says I just bought his Detective Comics 168. Congratulations! For anybody that's not familiar with that one, that's the first Red Hood. Did you buy it in this auction, or let me know if you picked it up in this auction? Um, Beyond grade, how do you personally prioritize value, page quality, color strike, centering, staple placement, or any other factors? Um, for me, grade is, well, I would generally say grade is the most important, but there are definitely exceptions to that rule for me. And here I'm going to throw the live auction back up. Just let's see, we're at 202. Just want to see if we anything that I was watching sold recently. Oh, let's there were a couple. Let's check out that and I'll come back to answering that question. We had the 94192. So this Teenage Romances, oh man, this is what I'm talking about. $18,000. Holy cow. I had this going for 6,500. 18,000. That makes that other sale make even less sense. The 1440. Like this book does, this is a rare book. This is a good cover too. Like this is an example of great cover content, you know, like cool story, like fun story on the cover. You've got the good girl art cover, like, and I think, is this top of census? There's 2 in 70, none higher. So there's one other. So, and let's go down to there's not many. There are very few, only 9 universals. So I'm not surprised it went for a lot, but holy cow, 18,000. I mean, yeah. that is a perfect example of what I've been seeing with these. Like this is wild. 7.0 for 18,000. And it's in the magazine case. No one even cared. You know, this is, you can tell this is like the case is a lot bigger than the book. It's a magazine case. No one even cared. Didn't even bat an eye. Oh my gosh. Like that's wild. Like I'm telling you, like Matt Baker romance it's crazy what those books are doing right now. Like just crazy. Like if you're not familiar with Golden Age stuff and you know this genre, I mean these are really wild numbers. 18,000. Holy cow. And then the next one, I was watching the next book too. That's a big sale because I sold my 2.0 earlier, well, in 2023. The person I sold to was probably pretty happy with that sale because that's a big number. 13,200. Yeah, I mean that's a really strong. I had that going for 10. Prior record was 4,300. This is considered like one of the top Alex Schomburg like Good Girl Art Bondage covers that's out there, if not the top one. It's definitely more rare than the. It's a different printer. It's just from Continental, and you can see like the census is, you know, there's only 42 on census versus you might get up in kind of like the not maybe usually not quite 100, but close to 100 with the timely books. So it's a lower number, but yeah, that was a really big sale too for that book. Let's see, were there any others that I was watching right around there? Oh, The Underworld Crime. 9, one of my favorite covers. So we had a 3.5. Underworld Crime number 7 go for 4,320. I had this one going for 3,800. Prior record was 4,080. So we had a new record here as well. It is one of my, I have a copy that's on my keeper list right now. But I really like I think the coloring that was done on this. I mean, just like there's little details like this guy looking at the guy in the corner because they feel like they're torturing her to get to him. Just the lighting on her face and everything with this like hot poker iron that they're threatening her with. I mean, this is a pretty crazy cover. And unfortunately, we don't know who did it. There's the cover artist isn't credited. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a book I own, so I like seeing it have a good sale, but I also like seeing books that I really like also kind of like get that respect out there and get some, you know, some higher bids. And yeah, this is one of my favorite covers from the Golden Age. But yeah, we'll jump back to this Weird Tales of the Future 5 Bethlehem pedigree we're going right now. But yeah, let's jump back to that question here about So beyond grade, how do you personally prioritize value, page quality, color strike, centering, staple placement, and or any other factors? So grade is at the top normally. The one thing that can really throw that off is color strike or fading. If you have something where it's like a 7.0, but it's super faded, like it's been, you can tell it was sitting out in the sun for a while, that will actually deter me more. Where the grade will still give it a lot of its value, but that fading can really hurt it. So for me, I would say, yeah, it's like grade is probably on average the top. Then it's going to be, is the book faded or not? That visual, and I'll just generalize that as visual appeal. Visual appeal is the next biggest thing to me, and that doesn't. I'm not including normally like centering for that, because typically centering is pretty small. Like whether it's you're showing a little bit of the wrap on one side or the other, it can come into play when it's like a massively off centered, but that's pretty rare. So I would say visual appeal, and with that I mean generally the colors on the cover, so that it's not faded, that kind of thing. Then you could kind of break that down a little bit more into color strike. And for less expensive books, that doesn't matter quite as much to me. But as I've been starting to get into some a little more pricey books, the color strike has really become more important to me. Just that visual appeal of the book. And so I've talked about that with like Hulk 181. If you're interested in Hulk 181, like you can have Hulk 181s that are, I mean, let's see, let's look it up here. Just so I can get something where you can see more pictures of it. So Hulk number 181. And you can have Hulk 181s that have extremely different color strikes. Let's see, search here, and this takes forever. Oh yeah, actually loaded pretty quick. So you can see this one, the 7.5, is a pretty, and it could, part of it might be the picture, but a pretty light orange. This one, and again, it might be the lighting a little bit, but you can still tell this is a much darker orange, near red. And as you kind of like cycle through a whole bunch of them, you'll see a lot of variability in that color. Like this one's really light. Some of that might be fading. It might be a little bit of sun fade, but when you compare it to like this one or this one or this one, like that type of thing has a big impact to me. So for example, there was one that sold right at the beginning of this auction. Where is it? It's 91040. 91040. This 98. This one, it's not a bad orange, but it's lighter than you can have. You can have much darker, color strikes than that with this book. And so like if I was looking at a 181, I would be targeting a darker one. You see this with New Mutants 87, the first cable. That one, you'll have huge ranges in color strike on that book. You can see that with Amazing Spider-Man 300. Amazing Spider-Man 300, like sometimes you'll have like deep reds on that cover, and other times it's really light, and it's not necessarily fading. And so that is an important part to me. Staple placement doesn't really matter at all. And again, unless it's like something extreme, like the wrap doesn't matter that much to me. Staple placement doesn't matter that much to me, unless it's really off. If like the staples are, I think I've seen some examples where staples are like 2 inches into the cover, like that. Yeah, that's awful. But if it's, like a quarter inch, half inch, whatever it is, like that doesn't really matter to me. And generally you'll find offset staples on the back actually result in typically much higher grade books, because when people were reading them, they weren't creating that crease on the cover. They weren't putting the stress on the spine. So offset staples on the back typically end up being the really high grade copies. And the bottom of the list for me, and I've said this a number of times, is page quality. I generally do not care about page quality. I buy brittle page books, slightly brittle, all the way up to white pages. I mean, there's little bits in there. Like sometimes there are brittle books that are just, you can tell they're crumbling, just like falling apart. But most of the time, even if it's marked as brittle, the book isn't actually just like falling apart in your hands. It's got some small section of the book that's brittle. And so CGC just marks the whole book as brittle. And that's why I know some people have said that what CGC should probably do is, for page quality, like for brittle or slightly brittle, maybe they could have like some type of image where they identify where specifically in the book it's actually brittle. Like, is it everything? Is it all, all parts of the book, or is it just this little corner down in, like, on the right corner of the book? And that should make a difference to people. So generally, I don't care about page quality. That's the bottom of the list for me. Um, I've got a question. Hey man, how's it going? I wanted to ask what would be the best way to start an amazing Spider-Man collection. Looking to do a 1 to 100 collection, but not sure where to start. I mean, right now, I would say you probably, well, I don't know what your budget is. So we'll start with that. I don't know what your budget is, but generally, I'm still seeing a lot of the Spider-Man books dropping in price. So I would be patient, especially for like the big keys. I would, you be patient on the big keys, and maybe start targeting some of the other books like later on in the run and trying to get them raw. If you're just, it depends what your goal is. Like if you're trying to put together some high grade run, then that's a different story than if you just want to have 1 through 100. And so if you just want to have 1 through 100, you could focus on getting a lot of those books knocked out for 20, 30 bucks, even less in some cases. I mean, I had a collection I bought that I sold, I think like 15 issues or 10-ish, 12 issues under 100 for like $200 or something, less than $20 a piece, because they were lower grade. They were like in the 2 range to 4 range. And so you can knock out a lot of that stuff pretty quickly, or pretty easily, just by, not necessarily quickly, but easily by either search around eBay, going to shops, going to shows, that kind of thing. But then the big books, I would say put on your list and price them out and really just look at what they're going for. If you're looking to put together a collection like that, even if you're going low grade, when you get to those big books, they're expensive. And so if you don't have a pricing service, whether that's GPA or Go Collect, go get one. You are only doing yourself a disservice if you don't do that. And so get one, learn how to price books, just look at enough stuff, get a general idea what they're going for. You don't have to like spend hours and hours necessarily doing it, but just get a general idea what they're going for, figure out what grade you want to go for, and then just stick to that and wait until the opportunity comes up for a book that goes in that price range that you're looking for. And then you just buy it. That's what I would say. Like, these are books that are common enough that you don't have to make yourself buy it. Like, this isn't like this is some, golden age book that comes up for sale once every 3 years. Like, these are Amazing Spider-Man that have thousands of copies on census alone, let alone the raw books that are out there. You do not need to overpay for those books. And so patience is important. Knowing your pricing is important. And that just ensures that you don't end up overpaying and regretting it later on. So that's what I would recommend doing. If you want it all graded, that's a different story than if you were okay with raw. But once you start getting up into like issues, probably 15 and under, plus a few others like 20 and 50 and 31, that kind of thing. You're going to probably pay a lot, whether it's raw or graded. You're not getting a steal on like ASM 1 or ASM 3 or 14, or, that, like, those big first appearances, you're going to pay a lot of money. Like, you're going to pay thousands of dollars, or at least $1,000 for a lot of them. And in ASM 1, you're going to be paying multiple thousands. Like, you just have to accept that, whether it's raw or not. But yeah, that's how I would approach it. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up on the chat here. Tech 58. Yes, I did talk briefly about that one. Basically, I was talking about that with Desired Comics. Thanks for joining the chat. I think I saw you were driving through the snow earlier today. I saw a post about, like, it looked like a pretty bad snowstorm that you were going through. So we had 940. Oh, let's see, 94060. So this is that Tech 58 first Penguin. Went for 10,200. I had this one going for 8,500. So it went for about 20%, maybe exactly 20% over my estimate. And so, yeah, I mean, early techs, I mentioned that if you were on the chat earlier, or the video earlier, early techs, there's a lot of demand for them. They keep going big. World's Best #1. This is what eventually changed into World's Finest. Let's see, what did I have that going for? World's Best #1. I did price that one out. I had it going for 4,500. It went for 45.60. Prior record was 45.60, so sold for exactly what the prior record was. Hit that same record. This is a cool book. If you're not familiar with World's Finest #3, and let's just go to that one here. This is actually the first appearance of the Scarecrow. If you want to see the interior, I had a short that I put out maybe like a year ago. You can go through like my shorts that I have here on um, on YouTube, and I showed the that first page from that interior because I had a raw copy. Then I think I did a video when I got it where I did the flip through and I showed the whole story. So if you want to go find that video, search that one out. You can see the whole interior there. But it's first appearance of the Scarecrow. If that the splash page for that story with the Scarecrow is awesome. If that first appearance of the Scarecrow was actually that splash page was the cover, this book, I mean, it would probably go for 5 times as much. I wouldn't be shocked if it sold for 5 times as much, if not even a little bit more than that. Given what the first cover appearance of the Scarecrow goes for, that what is it? Like Detective Comics 73, something like that. Let me check. I think it's 73 or 71 or 79, something in that range. Yeah, it's okay. I was right first time. All right, 73. Yeah, so yeah, Tech 73, like this, because this is the first cover you get with him and the only cover in the Golden Age. It's a much more, and if you hear my dogs barking in the background, it's just the dogs barking. But so it's just like this book goes for a lot because this cover just, it's still a fun cover, like baseball cover, yeah, Batman, Superman, Robin, but it's not for Scarecrow cover. So yeah, but let's see, it went for 6,000. I had this one going for 4,200. Prior record was 6,124, but I had been seeing it pull back. So it wasn't a record, but very strong sale for this book. Aliens #1. I did price this one too because I never see this book sell in a 9.8. Aliens, I loved. Well, I have a love-hate relationship with Aliens because I really like the movie, but it scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. Like I was, and not just a kid, like probably up until I was like 17. So it's just like this scared, like it made me just always afraid that something was going to be coming out of the wall or out of the dark in the corner, something like that. So my dad let me watch this movie way too early, way too young, and definitely had an impact on me, but very difficult in 9.8. So 82 and 9.8. Let's see what the total census is on it. Let's see here. Well, yeah, so total census is, it's not loading. All right. Well, oh, here we go. So out of 1,239 graded copies, 82 of them are 9.8. I don't see it come up for sale very often. Oh, there's the AF-15. Let's see what this one goes for. And then I'll talk a little more about the aliens. The aliens I had going for 2,800. Sold for 26.40, so pretty much in line with what I expected. Had a peak sale during the comic boom of 7,500. So, I mean, just an example of some of those books that just went absolutely nuts during that big jump in comic boom prices. This is a big sale for this Amazing Fantasy 15. I had it going. Well, I don't like to give my price until it's finished. All right, so I had it going for 5,500. And it went for 60 or 55,000. Yeah, 100. I wish. 55,000 went for 63,000. So that was a solid sale. This is a wild book. I'm not shocked this didn't get another bid. This is insane. Like so for anybody that says that, Stanley's signature doesn't add value, check this one out. This has 2 Stanley signatures, actually two written phrases as well. So it says signed Stan the Man by Stan Lee on the May 30th, 2010, and signed My Favorite Creation by Stan Lee on September 15th, 2012. $46,800. I mean, I I had this book priced at 25,000, and I thought maybe I was being like a little generous on it, like giving maybe a little too much to the signature. 46,800. I mean, yeah, it's like a one of one. I'm sure there's not another one out there like this, but that's, I mean, let's go show what a like a a universal sells for. So we got Amazing Spider-Man #1. So Universal 60, Amazing Spider-Man #1. Oh, and I'll hide that one. 60 Amazing Spider-Man #1. Last sale 17,102. 55 15 6 65 21 6. I mean, near triple almost the price for those two Stanley signatures. That if that doesn't say something about, you know, what signatures can add to value, I mean, I don't know what else can. Like that that was a in just crazy sale to me. I mean, I was going through pricing this out and I was just like, what is that? Like it was sitting at, you know, and again, I'm not surprised it didn't get another bid. It's just that is a huge amount of money for that book. Um, but yeah, let's see here. Sorry, I want to go back into the chat. So kind of sad that the other ASM 1989 curator probably won't go for the same amount, and it's a legit 98. I mean, not necessarily. Yeah, sometimes the pedigrees add value, sometimes they don't. It's hard to say for sure. Um, I it also depends on like the color strike. I don't know. I think let's see, has that other one? I thought it had never. I've never seen it, so I don't know. There's no picture of it on GPA, so I've never seen that book. I don't know if the color strike is better or not. That could impact if it actually sells for more or not. If you hold them up against one another. Um, but we did talk about that earlier. I do think it's a legitimate 9.8. I did a big kind of like rant about the about that, where I feel like it's probably like a 9.7, you know, and so you send it in 10 times and 6 times you get a 9.6 and 4 times you get a 9.8. I think that's probably kind of how I view that book. But um, let's see here. So to everyone saying CGC should regrade every reholder, just think of this guy. What if he picks up a small crack in shipping? So I actually comment on that. And I commented that on that. I think about the 99 cap 100 in my video earlier this week, where if CGC does make that decision, which I don't think they will, and it's largely because of this, you would never have. And I mean, I think maybe they'll investigate them a little closer, but no one would ever resub a 9.9 or a 10 ever. Like you never would. Even if you had a crack case, you never would, because the likelihood of you getting that 9.9 again on a full regrade, pretty low, you know. And that's the tricky part with 9.9s. I mean, it says a lot about 9.9s, right? Like that, are they really worth the huge premium that's paid for them if you cracked it out and resubmitted it, and it probably isn't getting that same grade again? And that's, I mean, that's just on, you know, whoever wants the book, whoever's paying that. You know, we talked about that earlier. Like most people are generally buying the grade, not the book, that kind of stuff. Um, it's just no one would ever, like, no one would resub a 9.9. Like there's no way. If you would risk losing, in many of those cases, like tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, like the 199 Hulk 1 or Hulk 181 is, at least the last time I'd ever seen a picture of it, it was an old label. I don't know if it's ever been resubmitted. That book's, I wouldn't be shocked if that's $1 million+ book. It's the single highest graded. No one would ever resubmit that, ever, because you would risk losing that 9.9. And then, you know, you get a 9.8, it's worth 60 grand versus 1 million. Like there's no way. There's no way you would risk that. And same thing like that Captain America 100. I mean, if we look at Captain America 100, the 9.9 sold for 78,000 in this auction, which was tied its record. 9.8 goes for 9,600. Like, who's going to risk that? Losing 60 grand, you know, or 70 grand for a new case? No one. So I don't think that that's actually going to happen. Do you know why the owner of the curator isn't a new collection? I mean, I think that was found a while ago. I have no idea why they sold it. Um, uh, but uh, but I have no idea why they actually sold it. Um, yeah, big sale on the Terrific 5. Yeah, definitely. I agree. That was a strong sale for that Terrific 5. Um, I wonder if so we had a comment here. I wonder if it matters who pressed the ASM1 as to whether it would have gotten a 9.8 CCS versus someone else. I mean, if you watch my channel, you know I don't trust CCS pressing. I wouldn't give them that book. Um, there's no way. So I don't know. I don't know who it went through, but I wouldn't send that book to CCS. Never. Never. Um, uh, let's see. About the Tech 168. So you said I actually bought the 168 raw. Appears around a 4.0, no restoration. About to send it to my presser. Cool. Yeah. Good luck with the submission and the pressing and everything with that. Um, uh, Chris, Vancouver comic junkie, says fading drives him insane. Seeing higher grade books with 8.0 or higher grades is so dumb. The fading is definitely one of those things that that really gets to me with that. Just a visual appeal of the book. I can't really get past it. Some people it doesn't matter. I mean, they're always going to sell for something. There's a value there, but it definitely to me really hits that value. Let's see. So. Clobberin Times says, Yo, Ryan, pre-COVID GPA prices have such big swings every year. How do you calculate value for a year? Just take the average. Are big swings just the nature of comics that we will now see post-COVID? Not really. So I don't value for a year. I am generally like with Golden Age books, that kind of thing, where they don't sell very often and you didn't have quite the type of swings in prices. You can use older sales, but with more modern books, like, I mean, you've Silver Age and up. I'm using the most recent stuff I can find, like sales within the last month, using multiple sales across multiple grades. That's generally what I'm looking at. I don't care what it sold for a year ago. Like I care what it's selling for now. And so, I mean, cause you can just look at let's take a Captain America 100. Let's look at a 9.4. I mean, I don't care what it sold for here. Like up at this peak price here, this book is still trending down. And so if I look at what this book was selling for in say 2020, it's like a $2,000 book. Here now, it's down kind of close to that. I would say around $2,000 is a pretty safe buy-in point. Like it might still trend down a little bit. And if we go over here, like, yeah, you may get down into like 1,500 or 1,700, but the risk here isn't very high. But then if you look at, let's see, what's one that I think Giant Size X-Men 1 is still pretty elevated. So if we look at Giant Size X-Men 1, and at least in a 9.8, it's still pretty elevated. It did have a pretty low sale in this auction, this $22,000 sale. But like this is a book that pre-boom, this was like a $10,000 book. It's still going for 20. It's still double what it was at. Now, I don't necessarily think it's going to go all the way back down to 2020 prices. Some do, some don't. But that's the type of book where I go, I'll wait, like I'm using most recent sales and I'm also using what it looks like the trend the book is on. And I'm looking at what the book sold for prior to these big jumps in prices. I look at all that. I'm not going to just limit myself to a small amount of information. And with this one, because I can see everything that's happened with it, I would just wait. There's no harm in waiting. Worst case, it levels off and you end up buying it at that price anyway. Best case, it keeps dropping and you get it cheaper. I think it's pretty unlikely that this is going to immediately spike back up to like $40,000. Even with the X-Men coming in the MCU, like nobody's really loving what's in the MCU right now. So I'm not betting on that as being a driving factor in prices. This was an interesting one because let's see. This book, so it was an 8.5, Batman 181. So first Poison Ivy, I had that one going for 4,000. Actually did pretty well. So it went for 4,560. The thing that really hurts this book is that, I mean, an 8.5 is extremely tough. It's white pages, but when you look close at it, it's like, I don't know if that's on the interior and it's like bleeding through, or if there was something else sitting on this. But there's just like the color is strange on this cover. It's one of those, like, it might be something that's on the inside of the front cover that's showing through, but I don't normally see that. That's why it just normally, like, it's either solid or you've got some color rub on the cover. But that, I feel like, was what probably hurt this book. There's just something strange about this. And you can say it says the cause. Like, it's the same ink, it's the same writing from here, but somehow it transferred down. I don't know why. I don't know if it was something during printing, like there were two copies sitting on top of one another, something like that. That might have happened with this one, but there's something strange with the ink on this cover, and so I think that that's why I priced it a little lower. I priced it at 4,000 because I felt like that was going to really hurt the book, just that visual problem with it. The last two, Heritage Auction, Hulk 2198 had weak color strike. Amazed went for 72. Yeah, I was surprised it went for 72 as well. I talked about that in my prior video. I had it going for 60. The white pages, I'm sure, played a role, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, like I said in that video, if it came up for sale again in 2 weeks from now and it went for 55 or 60. So Bob asks, would I ever sell my Weird Science Fantasy one? Yes, I have it for sale right now. so yes, I would sell it. Let's see. Elite Comics and Cards says, hello, Automatic Comics and everyone from the chat from Ontario, Canada. Yeah, thanks for joining, and appreciate everybody that is joining me this afternoon in this auction. I think it's fun to watch, to walk through these, see some of these books come up for sale, talk about some of these, like these big crazy sales, and there are deals too out there. Like, there are definitely deals out there as well. We've talked about some of those in this in this video, but yeah, one of the I'll touch on that, because there was the 9.6 Brave and the Bold 28 that sold earlier for $810,000 in the big part of the big platinum section of the auction, and I had it going for 540. There was a comment in the chat, or in the video, that someone said, like, oh, but it had a private sale for 750, so this isn't a surprise. Like, I'll tell you right now, like, private sales don't mean anything. like not everybody, and very few, are going to know about that private sale. Private sales are very different from open market auction. So I've seen plenty of times where people pay big numbers in private sales and then they get wrecked in an open market auction. So I would not say that private sales are something that really should even be considered hardly when you're pricing something out, because it's all about awareness of the knowledge. Like, that's one of those things with comic link sales. Like, sometimes people will talk about comic link sales, but a lot of, I'll reference them sometimes too, because I've seen them, but that's one of the tough parts with them, is that they don't get pulled into GPA. And so that can really play a role, because it's all about ease of getting that information. And if it's not on GPA, if it's not on Go Collect, if it's not on cover price, it's tough to get that information, and not everybody has it. And it definitely plays a role in what these books ultimately can sell for. Let's see. David Clark says, at the end of a printing ink run, the first few hundred look nice and rich in color. Last 100 are lighter in color. Swagglehouse says, sorry, had to go to Pepe Silva, Sylvia Town. Finally able to tune in. Yeah, thanks, Mickey, for joining. And let's see, we've got Sergio Reyes says, what did you think of the Edo Lawbreaker Suspense Stories 11? I was not expecting the sale that book went for, at all. I mean, it just sold like a couple months ago for way less. Then has this huge sale. If you're not familiar with that one, that is the book that I've talked about recently as to me, it's potentially the most disturbing Golden Age cover that exists. We'll go to that one. So this is, I think was it this one here? Yeah. 92048. Lawbreaker Suspense Stories number 11, $11,100. I had this one going for 7,000. It had previously and very recently sold for 7,800. Now, the reason I thought this one was going to go even lower, and why I thought maybe the person just decided to sell it real quick is that the color strike is not good on this copy. Like you can tell, like there's something weird with this one. Like you've got like whatever's going on with these like almost like take pulls or something weird with the print there. You've got like much darker red, like fading out here into this lighter orange. Like the visual appeal of this book is much lower than other copies that are out there. And so this perfect example, bought the grade, not the book. I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, bought the grade, not the book. An 8.0 is tough for this book. Visual appeal is not as good as plenty of lower grade copies, but it went for a huge, huge number. That's my opinion on this one. This was a perfect example of bought the grade, not the book. So if we go to Lawbreakers 11, and I'm not trying to take anything away from someone that bought the book. Like, you know, I'm sure they're very happy with it, and it's, you know, it's rare in grade and that, but I mean, that's like everybody, like, I feel like that's the conversation people want to have, especially with all like the CGC stuff and everything. That people should be, you know, really looking at their books and buying the book, not the grade. And that just, it's not what people do. You know, like on average, typically people buy the grade, not the book. And like, this is the exact same book that sold here. You know, 8.0, 7,800, exact same book. And then let's see, like if we look at like this 7.5, I thought was a really solid sale, like a strong sale that sold recently. And you know, like this book, this is a nice looking copy. Yeah, it's got a little bit like it's cut a little off here. This is like strong color. This might be one of the strongest looking colors I've ever seen in this book. You know, and then you compare it to this, like it's they're not even on the same level at all. But this one is an 8.0, sold for 2,300 more. So I mean, perfect example of, you know, buy the grade, not the book, right? So so yeah, and I'll keep going down here. I'm sure this comment was probably about the ASM1 and the too much writing on the book. Yeah, but apparently it didn't matter. You know, like it sold for like 3 times what a 6.0 it was selling for. And Derek says, "What if Stan signed? It is my favorite of Ditko's creations." I feel like he probably would not write that. This 12 cent. Why would FF48 be picking up steam? You think? I mean, I think, did I talk about that I don't know if I talked about that in another video or not, but I just, maybe I did. I don't know. I felt like it was an overpay personally. I mean, it was a strong sale, but for that 9.8 48, because like every other grade, I haven't seen really, unless I've missed it. Maybe I'm not paying enough attention to those, but the other grades have been dropping, like, and still kind of like trending down. That's why that 9.8 FF48 that sold was such a big surprise. That let's see, let me find it here. So that was 91036. So here's 91036. This is $96,000 sale. I think the prior record was like 102,000, but like this book, I mean, every other grade, like let's look at this book. It's just, this book is going down. That's really all there is to it. And that 9.8 sale was exceedingly strong. So yeah, like here's the 9.8. We've got like peak comic boom sale price, you know, 2021, $108,000. 2023, we had a couple lower ones. We had a 93 and an 81. But if we look at, I mean, let's look at like a 9.0. 2021, 15,500. Now, 7,200. Like cut in half, more than cut in half. And that is not just the 9.0. I mean, you can go to any grade and that's what you see. I mean, 9,200 in 2021 for an 8.0. Now, last sale, 3,600, like 70% down from its peak sale. And let's look at a 6.0, like 6.0, 4,650. Last sales around 1,500, down 66 to 70%. Like that is across the board what this book has done. And then you look at the 9.8, which is not an uncommon book, by the way. Like a 9.8 of this book, 43 copies on census. It's because I've talked about this before. There's a warehouse find. I mean, Look at 43.98s, 109.6s, 139.4s. Like there are a lot of high grade copies of this book out there. And this one, prior to the comic boom, you know, on the upper end, like maybe 40,000. Then you have this big sale and it has not corrected. That's why this is an example of a book. Like if somebody was asking me for advice on Fantastic Four 48 and a 9.8, like they had a bunch of money they wanted to spend, I would say, do not buy this book here. I would wait and see, does this thing correct back down to like 50,000? If it does, that's where I would be aiming for it. Otherwise, just be patient. There's so much downside risk to me in this book right now. Like that I wouldn't be surprised. And it's one of those things where it doesn't sell all that often. You can see like a couple a year. That's what can really be tricky with these is it takes a little while longer for them to correct. It's like what happened with that Ultimate Fallout 4 Drajevic. Like it didn't sell very often. It took a long time for it to correct. And now it's correcting, and it's going like 10 grand, 15 grand when it was up over 40. And so same thing here. I would be equally cautious with this book. There's no way I'd pay those numbers. Like never. I mean, when you've got a book that 5 years ago was selling between 30 and 37, and then here is still going for 96, no way would I pay that. I think your likelihood of eating a $40,000 loss is very high on that type of purchase. So that's like if somebody asked me for my advice on that book, that is the advice I would give. I would not buy this book at these prices. I think that the risk is extremely high that you could take a huge loss. Let's see. To keep the pedigree, it would have had to have been CCS, right? Curators don't have distinguished marks. Not necessarily. I know that I think it might depend on who your presser is. Like certain pressers can probably do it. But I mean, I've had books that I didn't send to CCS that retain their pedigrees. And I don't have a certificate or anything like that. And a lot of them will actually come with certificates, like whoever sold it first. Like a lot of like the Promise Collection books come with like a little certificate. The Crippen ones almost all come with a certificate. My Okajima ones have all come with certificates. So a lot of those do have certificates that come with them, and CGC does recognize them. And I wouldn't be surprised if they like maybe go and like check to make sure it's the same book, but you do not need to send them to CCS. Yeah, I mean, so I had the similar question here from TK Junction. You want to make sure, like you might need to make sure that they send the label in with it, or that your presser is actually like it would be the type of thing. Make sure your presser is at that level of that. Maybe they're an official CGC recognized dealer, that kind of thing. Those types of things might play a role. So I don't want to say like just in general that it's okay, but I have had it where I've retained my pedigrees. Oh, and we had Comic Doctor on here. Hey, yeah, thanks for joining. And he said TK, yes. So that's he would be an example of someone that would know the answer to that. Jeff says CGC updated their FAQ on the scandal yesterday. They do mention some process changes, including senior grader reviewing all reholders. I have not had a chance. The one thing I did see, I saw the 99 newsstand posted about how they were doing like paying people back if there were problems. Like basically they said they were going to be keeping the book as evidence, and then they pay you fair market value, which I understand. I don't know exactly how they're calculating fair market value, if they're using GPA or last sale or what. I know that, and I've talked about this with a couple people in different chats. I know some people are probably not going to like that. They're going to want to have been paid what they paid for the book. But I get the reason why they would do what they do, because effectively the argument would be, if you bought the book 2 years ago during the comic boom and you paid twice what it's worth now, it's not necessarily their job to dig you out of that hole. But if they give you enough money that you could go and buy a replacement copy of the same level, then you can do that. And you're still then in the same hole that you were in, with your prior purchase. Like that's how I view that. On why probably it's not like that I have a really big problem with it. I know some people are probably going to have a big problem with it. Some people are probably really not going to like that they're not going to give them what they paid. But if it's something where like a lot of these books this guy was apparently dealing with, um, are relatively common. You know, it's like ASM 300, ASM 194, X-Men 266. It's not like you can't find those books out there, and for whatever like fair quote, you know, fair market value they give you, you could probably find a replacement. You know, go just follow like Elite Comics 11 on Instagram for a little while. They're always having like those books come up for sale all the time. And so you'll probably be able to find a copy that's going to go around that price and you're going to be able to get your replacement. If that's what you want to do. Like maybe you don't, maybe you're, you know, you decide you don't want to deal with this anymore and you don't want to buy a replacement. But that's kind of how I see that the goal is to get you a replacement book that is of the correct grade. And that's a way to do that. So every reholder submission is now being reviewed by a senior grader, and we have made other significant improvements to our process as a result of this incident. So I'm curious what that means, because again, that's the type of thing where I feel like we still don't have enough information there. Is a senior grader looking at it on the surface? Are they actually taking the book out of the inner well and checking the pages, counting the pages, looking for Marvel value stamps, like that kind of thing? I mean, that's what I would want to know. Like, are they fully removing the book? Are they actually doing a full investigate or full inspection of the book, even if it's not necessarily fully regrading? Like, if they see like this is definitely a 9.4, this is not a 9.8, you know, then are they treating it that way, or are they gonna go like, oh, it's close enough? I feel like there's still not quite enough information there. It's better that they have some information there. That sounds like that's at least a good step. But I would be curious, is this just like they look at it through the case, flip it over, and they're like, yeah, it looks okay? Or but the fact that we know that there are these issues with like the Hulk 181s, are they legitimately taking the book out and doing a full, you know, like a full flip through check of that book? Um, so it says writing that was cleaned off on that book. That one. I'm not sure what that means. Um, the keeper list is just a clever name. Yeah. Oh yeah, and thanks Drew Como for joining the chat. Let's see. I'm trying to catch back up. I know I'm a ways behind on. Yeah. So yeah, talking about the 48. Yeah, Como saying there are so many FF48s out there. Yeah, I remember. And here's another one. There were a few of these books where it was like Stan wrote something like it must have been the same collector, probably the same person that had these. So this is signed, yes, Stan the Man Lee in 2011. Let's see what this one goes for. So I think I priced this one out. Let me check if I did. So like I said, I didn't price everything out. So Incredible Hulk one, yes, I did. I had this one at 27,000. It's still going. So it's sitting at 26.4 right now. I think that's where it would be. Yeah, 26.4. So it's right in there. I mean, maybe it gets a few more, but like it's not getting this. And I added some value based on the signature, but it's nothing like that ASM one. That ASM one was wild. Like I typically I'll add like for a Stanley signature on a big key, I'll add something like $3,000 to $5,000. That's typically around what I often see, the kind of like boost that you get with that big, you know, that Stanley signature on a big book. But like triple that ASM one was wild. But yeah, Drew, I remember Vancouver Comic Junkie. I don't know if he's still in the chat, but I remember he had mentioned like when he would go around to shows in like the early 2000s or something, people like dealers would have literally like stacks of FF48 on their tables, you know, just like stacks of them. Like, and so it was definitely a much cheaper book at one point. So yeah, you had to show the FF4890. That's what I have, and I keep seeing it drop hard. Hard to use that now towards an AF15 trade. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to potentially hurt the value on your book. Yeah, and there's this comment. Maybe they use AI. Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm not. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some type of AI that gets incorporated eventually. The tricky part is I feel like you'd still have to have some type of human involved, because like I've seen those videos of like machines reading books, you know, like them turning the pages and stuff. And you really want that touching your like fragile golden age book, like it rips your cover off or something. And then all you do is you just get the book and now it's like a detached cover and they're like, it must have happened in shipping. So something like that. I mean, I feel like that would be, man, that would be a big fear point for me with how I would want to know exactly how that AI is working. Or is it like the grader is like holding the book on a table and like flipping through, and you have some type of like imaging system above it, and that's like grabbing shots of like every page, the covers, and like they have to like turn it maybe so it can see the spine, and like maybe they have to make sure it can see this where the staples are, and that like I'm not sure exactly how that would work. It feels like it would slow things down though, which also means prices probably go up, not down. Whereas I feel like with cards, I would think like AI grading probably speeds things up. That's the big difference with, I know a lot of people like to use like cards as a reference, but I feel like AI grading with cards would really speed things up because you almost could have it almost like on a conveyor belt and just have cameras just grabbing shots because it's just one side, or, each side. But with comics, it's all the interior, it's the staples, it's staining, it's cutouts and pages, everything matters. And so I feel like it's definitely trickier. If you're just looking at the outside, that's one thing. Like if it's just imaging the outside and the spine, like you could get an estimate from that. And then maybe you have to have the grader look on the interior and check for anything going on there. Maybe that's how it gets used. I can't say for sure, but I don't doubt that it will be at least looked at pretty seriously at some point, but I'm not sure exactly how it gets implemented. Then we said, so we've got Bryant T here. I know you're not a fan of pulps, but do you know where I can go to learn more about them? Unfortunately, I do not. So I know there's that, it's like the Bookery pulp guide, something like that. That might be what you want to look into, but I'm not the person to come to about pulps. But I think it's called Bookery. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Someone in the chat might have a better idea. And Consume the Living says, does this mean reholders will be regraded? Pressed books revert. Does my honest 8.5 now is my honest 8.5 now an 8.0? I mean, that's a valid question. I don't know the answer to those questions. Like that's why that statement from CGC doesn't really to me feel like it doesn't say they're regrading. It just says it's being looked at by a senior grader. I don't know what I don't, that doesn't sound like regrading to me. It just, maybe it means it looks like they're looking for something that's off. That's more like what it feels like. Let's see. See if there's any other, I think I've caught up. All right. I've caught up. So we got Nowhere Bound here. It says, what's up, Ryan in chat? Any more good records? We've talked about a few. There have been some big sales that have been going on as part of this. But yeah, thanks for joining the chat. And yeah, then we've got Derek here, Bookery's Guide to Pulp. So hey, I got that for someone that still doesn't know about pulps. I did get that one because I have heard about like some. That's the tricky thing. That's the other big tricky thing with pulps. If you're not really familiar with them, and I've mentioned this before, like with comics, especially Golden Age, you can really go off the cover content. Like you can tell, like this is an expensive cover, this isn't. With pulps, you can't do that. There are tons of like really cool pulp covers. Like that could be skull covers, good girl art covers, violence, all this, the kind of stuff that if it's on a comic cover, it's huge dollars and they go for like $50. So it's like rarity plays a huge part of it. There are other things that are involved that I just don't fully understand and that I have not invested the time to learn about them. And part of it is because I'm just not all that interested in pulps. And that's why what I've talked about with pulps is just my feelings on the risks with them and the hype around them right now. But yeah, we had a couple Marvel Spotlight 5s. There was I think a 9.2 and a 9.0. Did the 9.2 just sell? Yeah, the 9.2 went for 7,200. I did it going for 7,500, so a little under my estimate. And the 9.0, I'll tell you my estimate after it goes. It's sitting at 3,840 right now. See if it gets any more bids. But definitely one of those books that has corrected quite a bit. Um, it it was one of the ones that really signaled the comic boom when we had that 9.8 Marvel Spotlight 5 that sold for what was it? It was 246,000, somewhere in that range. It was mid $200,000. So this one went for 4,080, and I had it going for 4,000. So the 9.0 went right where I thought. But let's check out the Marvel Spotlight 5. And like I said, if there's any other books anybody wants me to that they either maybe they picked up in this auction that they bid on that they want to talk a little bit about, I'm happy to just make sure to put it in the chat. I have finally caught up generally to the chat, so I can speak to that. Oh yeah, 264,000 June 2021. Like April, June, or it was like April, May, June was like when the comic boom really took off. I don't think there's any way this book goes for this price if it comes comes up again. Um, I don't know if it'll get cut in half, but I wouldn't be surprised at like 150. Um, I mean, let's like look at like a 9.4. This hit 30 and it's down to 15. It got cut in half. I mean, I wouldn't, again, like getting cut in half wouldn't shock me. I think probably 150 if it came up for sale, but if it went for 130 or 125, I wouldn't be like, that's a crazy thing. I think that was just a massive number that was paid for that book. All right. So we've got probably only a full regrade if they really think the grade is off. Yeah. And that's honestly like, that's what they were supposed to be doing in the first place. Right. Like, I think that's what people are a little upset about is that the whole regrade, I think the reholdering, like their statement would say, it's like, we will regrade if we deem it's necessary or something. And so you just kind of expected that every book was being at least looked at. And it feels like that was probably one of the big gaps that was there is they weren't really, or if they were, it was pretty surface level. But yes, I agree. I would like to see more information. I don't know if we're going to get more information, but it would be nice to have that. Consume the Living says, have any sales from this auction moved the needle on any future keeper list books? Not, I mean, for me, like the things that move, it's like, does it become too expensive for me to own? Like that's, and I generally don't talk about future keeper list books. And the reason is because if I do, it means there's more people out there that want it potentially. And then it's harder for me to get that book. So I usually like, I will typically wait to talk about a keeper book for me until after I've actually purchased it. I'm generally not going to talk about it beforehand. I'm not going to make content where I like say like, oh, this book is terrible, you shouldn't buy it. I will not do that. But I'm not going to actively like say like, hey, this is a cool book I'm looking for. And because I mean, there's a couple reasons. One, then I tend to have like a lot of people message me and say like, hey, I've got this book, or hey, here's, and I don't want that. I'm always looking for the deal. I want to try to find it in an auction, catch it at a low price or something. That's what I'm going to be looking for. So I usually keep those to myself until I'm actually out there bidding. Or until I actually own it. But here we've got a Spawn 1 number 9.9. There are actually quite a few 9.9s of this. I think there's even a number of 10s. Let's see. I'm not certain if there's 10s. I think there are. This book was printed so much. I feel like there have to be 10s. So in GPA, it always takes a while to load the books that have tons of sales. Yeah, there are 10s. It hasn't sold since 2008 though. Let's see here. 6 10s, 69 9.9s, 11,288 9.8s. I mean, that's a lot of 9.9s. Last sale, 5,750 for a 9.9, had a peak sale of almost 10,000. If I was pricing this book, I didn't see what it went for, or if it's finished yet. If I was pricing this one out, I would think like 5,100, pretty reasonable. Let's see what it went for. Went for 4,800. Yeah, I mean, like within range. Not a real surprise like with that one, but here's a book that, geez, this just keeps dropping. 9.8 white pages, special Marvel edition 15, first appearance of Shang-Chi. Marvel has not done any favors for this book. They have, I don't know what they're doing with this character. They have just left this character out to dry. Nothing about him. I mean, I don't know if it'll ultimately end up coming back some because, yeah, this, I mean, for a 9.8 for 1973, Bronze Age, black cover, 4,200 compared to other books out there, like similar books, man, that seems low to me. I mean, I know it used to be lower because it's like it wasn't a character people were really going after or anything, but still, like that just that seems low. I mean, yeah, it's still going down. I mean, it's not the low though. Low actually 4,080. Then we had some sales that were a little bit higher again prior to the comic boom. Well, you got to go a little further than that. I feel like you got to go almost like prior to announcement. So it's like maybe like a $2,000 ish book. Then you had the announcement, starts to climb. I don't know. This feels pretty low. Like 4,200 feels pretty low risk on that book for a 9.8. How many are out there? 129 9.8s. I mean, that's quite a few. There are a lot, but I don't know. That feels pretty low risk to me. Let me know what you think in the chat. Let's see. I got a question here. Did you pick anything up in the auction so far? Yes, I did. I bought the Okajima Pedigree Detective Comics 85. That is the one book that I bought in this auction. Yeah, Mickey, that's why I stopped making my my wish list videos. Yeah, like I mean, like I regularly have people tell me after I talk about books on a thing, they're like, "Oh, that book's so cool. I'm definitely gonna be looking for that." It's like that is why. That is why I don't talk about the books until after I have them because it makes it so much harder for me to find like a decent price for some of these, especially like and like the fact that I have now transitioned mostly into golden age, it's even worse because you know if you've got a book that only comes up for sale once every few months at best, and then you've got even if it's just two other people that are like, oh, I'm interested in that, you've got now two more people you're competing with in that auction, and all it takes is one more to make you have to pay a lot more for that book. So it's definitely something where I'm just like, yeah, like wish list books. Like I even thought about making a wish list video this year, and I stopped myself. I was like, nope, nope, not doing that. Um, Spawn 1 is the most found book in garage sales. I'm not surprised. Yeah, I would not be surprised about that. It still holds a decent amount of value. I mean, it's like a $20 to $40 book raw. I mean, it's still a decent book like to pick up just in any type of collection or find, you know, just sitting out there somewhere. Um, but yeah. So over here, let's see. I'm sure I've got some other fun books, some big sales that I could talk about here. Because this auction has just been it's been really incredible to watch. Let's see. One of them that I marked the. So we talked about the Amazing Fantasy 15. I wanted to talk about the Fantastic Four number 4, the 8.5. So let's see what that one went for. So because that is a book that has been correcting quite a bit. So we had this FF4 8.5 went for 12,000. I had this going. This is a strong sale. I had this going for 9,500. This is a really solid sale for this book because this is another one. Like I'd be talking about Submariner. Like Submariner had been trending down. This book had peaked at 18,000, but I mean, let's take a look at pricing for this one. So we got Fantastic Four, and especially when we had the Avengers 4, like the first Silver Age stuff, like this is first Silver Age Submariner. I feel like it's been dropping. But like we had this $11,100 sale in October. But again, I'm really like kind of like going back to, yeah, I mean, I'd been seeing this book like overcorrect a little bit. Maybe I was a little harsh on it, you know, at the 9,500. Maybe I was a little harsh, you know, but still 12,000 feels like a pretty strong sale. I mean, higher than the last two 2023 sales, higher than anything in 2019. So I don't know, that feels like a pretty strong sale. This is one of those things. It's going to be really interesting to see how this year plays out because I mean, prices have definitely continued trending down. And so I'll be interested to see how, like, are things going to start turning back up again? Like, we've got, like, people have said in the chat earlier, like, crypto's booming again, stock markets at near record highs again. Like, is that going to translate into sales in comics? I know Mickey has mentioned that there's like, he thinks they're probably kind of like a delayed effect, and hey, maybe. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how this year plays out, because the last 2 years, generally, we've been just seeing books trending down. Have you ever sold a book that you've never seen come up for sale again? No. That that is that's a big part of my, like, buying, selling, collecting philosophy, is that no matter how rare that book is, it'll come up for sale again. I mean, even super, super rare stuff like Suspense Comics #3, like this, and I mean, this one isn't like ultra rare. It's like 50 or 60 copies, I think, that are out there. This one here, this Alex Schomburg, like, considered one of the top covers of all time. Like, this one, you don't see it come up for sale very often, but I mean, in the last 5 years, I've still seen it come up for sale maybe 4 times. It still comes up for sale. Like, it's a super rare book, but it does still come up for sale. Now, the tricky part is that the one that comes up for sale might be a 8.0, and it goes for $500,000, and you have zero chance, like, at least for me, like, zero chance at affording that book. Or is it going to be the 1.0 that comes up for sale that you actually have a shot, but then everybody else that collects this, that wants this book, is bidding against you? But yeah, that's generally been my philosophy, is that cool stuff comes up for sale all the time. There's, whether it's the Heritage auction or the, big Comic Connect auction or Comic Link or My Comic Shop or Hakes or whatever else, or on Instagram, like, there's always cool stuff. So if you just want cool stuff, which is generally my philosophy, like, I just want cool books. Like, that's a big part of what I, when I'm buying things. Like, sometimes there are books that I'm specifically like, I'm keeping my eye open for, like Suspense 3. But I mean, granted, like, that one's kind of a pipe dream, but, like, I just want cool stuff. So if I keep a pretty generic outlook like that, then I will have a lot of opportunities to buy cool stuff, and I don't need to overpay for it. And so that tends to be my philosophy towards it, is that I just want cool stuff, and if I just am patient, I'll get some cool stuff for a decent price. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much how I approach that. Yeah, and appreciate it, Ken. Yeah, it really helps if you hit the like button, and so yeah. Again, thanks. I got 92 people in the chat. Really appreciate everybody joining me for this auction. Let's see, what's the last book I'm watching. The last one I'm watching is a 94352. So we're getting close. I don't know how many go after that, but we are getting close there. That's a pulp. There are some pulps that are closing out this one, and I think that one is the first Conan. It's this Weird Tales, December 1932. I'm pretty sure that's what that one is. There are a couple pulps that I think are kind of cool, but like I said in my prior video, I'm not out there chasing them. And Derek says he wanted that Okajima Tech 85. Yeah, I did too. so yeah, I just decided to go for it. I had, like I've said, I want, it has a lot of what I really wanted, and it's from a major run. It's Detective Comics 85. It's a Joker cover. It's not my favorite Joker cover, but still, it's a Joker cover. It's got Okajima written on the cover, and and it's that's because it's from the period when she was in the Japanese internment camp. And so a lot of things that are extremely rare and desirable about that copy just made me decide I wanted to go for it. And we got Mark here. Says, yes, patience is the word. Yeah. That's generally how I approach it. I mean, I know, like, that can be tough though. Like, it can be tough to pass on things. Like, there's been a lot of times where I passed on things that, and it really, and I think that probably really affected people's, like, the psychology with buying during the comic boom, because, you watched prices, like, either, like, just slowly trend up for decades, or, for years, and it just follow their general normal trends with comics. and you're like, I've got time. I just got to, I'll just be patient and I can pick this thing up. I'll wait for that auction or whatever that goes a little lower and I'll get a good price. And then all of a sudden, everything just like immediately was going up. And then you're just like, oh no. Like, and that definitely impacted me too, where I was like, I'm never going to have an opportunity to get this book again. Like afterwards, when we look back, you're just like, oh, it was all crazy. It didn't make any sense. Like those prices weren't, were all like inflated by crypto or whatever else, free money and all this. But when you're in the middle of it, it's a different story, and that's why everybody was paying those prices. Like everybody after the fact with, the looking back, 2020 vision, that kind of thing, you think like, oh, it was so obvious, but it wasn't when you're in the middle of it. And there's books that you really want, or you've been looking for that you just think like, I'm never going to have a chance again because the prices are just going to keep going. And so, yeah, it's the hindsight. What is it? Hindsight is 2020. And that's what it is with those. We've got curious if anyone watching has any thoughts on manga grading, or manga grading. So I mean, yeah, I put out that video yesterday, 2 days ago, something like that, about Beckett announcing that they are doing that kind of like their official. Like sounds like they're accepting submissions now for manga grading, and like my thought is it feels like a very good long-term decision by Beckett. And I mentioned it in that video. I would not be shocked if CGC is also going to do it because they're grading pulps, or they're going to be grading pulps. They've got a case designed for that thicker style of book. And so you just put manga in there instead, like it's not a big adjustment. You just, you do that. Now, I know some people have been talking about like a lot of the really older ones, like the Shonen Jump books that are much larger aren't going to fit in the Beckett cases. I don't know what the situation is going to be with the CGC ones, if they'll ever make ones that are big enough to hold those. But I do think that long term, because of how popular it is today, like I've seen plenty of things where people talk about that, where sales of manga um, far far exceed comic sales today. And so there's definitely going to be like, maybe 15, 20 years down the line, people that are probably going to be interested in really like, I mean, people are interested today, but I think it's going to be bigger for the collecting them, grading them, all that. And I think it's a solid long-term play on their part. It'll be interesting to see. And, there were a number of comments you see where people say like, oh, like nobody wants to keep those, that kind of thing. That's exactly why you would think it's going to end up being collectible. Like that's the type of stuff where people are like, oh, nobody keeps that. Nobody collects that. Those are the things, like the things that people normally would just throw out or not take good care of. Those are the things that become collectibles and successful collectibles. So I would not be surprised. Let's see. Mickey says, this is why people eventually move to original art, historical items, and dinosaur bones. Got to keep feeding that rare palette. Yeah, I mean, I won't deny that I have I have been spending a little more time looking at original art. Um, Original art scares me. I will say that. I it's difficult to price. And somebody commented on one of my videos where they had said like, "Oh, it's easy to price. Like it's just if it's a more famous artist, it sells for more." I'm like, like it's not quite that easy. It's like you can look at comparable pages and things by the same artist and whatever else, but I mean, content matters. The platform it sells on matters. Like Heritage is a very good platform for original art. That's something I've noticed. Like they get the big numbers on Heritage for original art. And but it's like I was just talking about this with Drew and Mickey like a day ago, where I was looking at there were well, I'll show them. I was looking at these two. There were two pieces of original art that really caught my attention during uh, these sold on I think Friday, and it was 93036. It was these Ghastly Graham Ingalls interior pages. It was just one page. Story page one, $22,532. Then we had one later, $30,121. The like things like this 5 years ago, maybe a little more, like 5 to 7 years ago, you could buy full stories, like 7 pages for 5 grand to 10 grand. Now, individual pages, 20 to 30,000. Like I made a joke that I was just like, I hardly even need to look up pricing anymore. It's just like it's $30,000. Like that's what it is. Like it's $30,000. So it's just like across the board. Like I mean, there was a cover that was done by Johnny Craig. It sold in the last big auction that I was looking at, and it's the type of thing where based on like it wasn't even from one of these runs. It was from it was from one of the runs prior to that when they turned into like Tales from the Crypt and that kind of stuff, and it was like 24,000 or 25,000 when in reality it seemed like I would have thought maybe 10, and it's just like everything is just like 20,000, 30,000. It's crazy. It's just crazy stuff. And it's not just this. I'm trying to remember to remember which one it was. Let's see if I can find it. I was really joking about I was laughing about this one. Um let's see if I can find this one. I think it was Crazy Cat. Where is it? I'm gonna look for most recent sales. Yeah. So right here. This sold in this auction. 31,200. I was like, who is Crazy Cat? I don't even know who Crazy Cat is. This is all it was this. So I looked it up afterwards. It's this artist, George Harriman, was known for drawing Crazy Cat. It's like that. He wasn't known for drawing anything. It's not like this was someone, it's like Frank Rosetta and he drew this. And so it's like, that's why it's like he was known for drawing Crazy Cat. He drew it from like the 30s through the 40s, something in that range, and maybe it was the 20s through the 40s. So it's like something that you would have to be like 90 years old to even have any idea what this was. And so maybe that's what it was. Maybe it's like a 90-year-old billionaire that decided to spend $31,200 on this. Like this is a dead character. Like this is a character, no, like almost, I'm not gonna say no one, but almost no one is gonna know who Crazy Cat is. It reappeared in like 4 color for like 5 issues in the early 50s. And that's it. Like nobody's like seen this character in print for 70 years. Like it's like I just why is this $31,000? I just like I don't like this like this is one where it's like this isn't like some famous artist anymore. Like why is this $31,000? I don't get it. I don't understand. It's my little rant about like trying to price out original art. It's just it's wild. This stuff just it goes for crazy money, and sometimes like things like this just make no sense to me. Like I get it when like Peanuts sell for huge money or Calvin and Hobbes sells for huge money, but I don't get it when Crazy Cat sells for huge money. Doesn't make any sense to me. Let's see. I'm falling behind on the chat again. I need to sell some. I just want cool stuff. Automatic comic. That's not a bad phrase. Like I feel like I just want cool stuff. I was kind of like, as I was saying, I'm like, I kind of like this. Like that is my philosophy. I just want cool stuff. Um, I've got an ASM 238 Mark Jewelers Raw, and I was thinking of grading for my PC that I bought from the LCS, but I'll probably hold off for a while, see how things shake out. Yeah, I mean, I was watching. I think it was on Pressable Defects. They had like Very Gary and Erod on there, and they were talking about their takes on this kind of stuff. And Gary made a comment that he was not going to be submitting any books for grading until we get some type of like whether like something that CGC is doing to address it, like a new case or whatever else they're going to do to fix this issue. And I'm in agreement with that. I'm holding, I do have one book that's there right now. It's just like, it was sent already. I don't have it. I can't control it. But I'm not planning on sending anything else in until we have some type of answer there that I am not then going to feel like I have to send them in again. So I'm on the same page with him on that. And that's what I would, probably recommend is just, if you don't like need to send it in, like I get it. Like if you're like a dealer that's got to pay your bills and you need to get stuff graded to sell it and all that, like that's one thing. But if you don't need to send stuff in, I probably wouldn't send stuff in right now. I would just wait until we get some type of resolution. That also helps motivate them to make the change more quickly. because if nobody's sending stuff in, or if there's a reduction, they've got less money coming in. They're more motivated to fix it. Let's see. So SSF Ebor says, been focusing on original art again, but again, buy what you like and can afford. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Like I've made this comment, and maybe this is the other saying I should give, but I say, like, it depends what your purpose for buying is. If you're buying just to hold forever, buy what you like. If you are planning on selling, at any time in the near future, or even a little bit longer future, you should also be buying what other people like. Like, that's the statement I say. I was like, buy what other people like. Now, hopefully what other people like aligns with what you like. There is something in there that aligns with you like, but if, like, you love golden age Westerns, you're going to have a hard time because that is a tough sell out there. But most stuff, if you love Amazing Spider-Man or pre-code horror or superheroes, that kind of thing, like, you'll be fine. You can find things that other people like. But yeah, there's stuff where not a lot of other people like it. There's a lot more stress owning original art for sure. How to store, how to display. Yeah, I was wondering about that too. Like, I'd always worry, like, maybe you like display it wrong and ends up damaging it, or like, how, I don't know how much sunlight affects it. If you want to make sure you get like UV protective glass, all that. But I don't. I mean, I don't have any original art, so it's not really a problem I have to deal with yet. Let's see. I'll say, like, you are the one person that knows this. Like, George Harriman is huge. Crazy Cat is a major influence on cartoonists. I mean, I don't know. I don't see it. Like, I mean, if you feel comfortable, let me know in the chat, like, what your age is, because I feel like that is a big, range, like, age range. I feel like that's a big part of this. It's like we talked about before, like the Richie Rich books, like the 9.8 Richie Rich or whatever it was, or 9.6 selling for 100 grand. Like, there's no reason that should sell for that unless you're like 80 years old with a bunch of money. It's just, it's a property that nobody really cares about anymore. Yeah, it's just, that's the thing. Like, I feel like there are things that you can buy, and I feel like I'm just trying to say this, that, like, you have to be able to look at it from the perspective of what this is going to be in the future. And in the future, like, I don't see Richie Rich as a big character. I see less and less people knowing who Crazy Cat is. I mean, that kind of stuff. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's my opinion, and that's why this is my channel, so my opinion on it. But that is the type of thing that I would not be putting huge sums of money into. Let's see. I mean, this says up to not that long ago. That's not true. I mean, when you go and look at the wiki, it last, like, official published stuff was in 4-color in the 50s. This is not something that was very recent that has been being published for that character. It's funny that, Derek, you mentioned the Richie Rich thing. Yeah, like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, Richie Rich is like, it's those types of characters that just aren't very popular anymore. And that was my stance on the Tarzan. The Tarzan, that big pulp sale with Tarzan, is that it's just Tarzan. Like, there was a comment that someone responded in the comments of the video that said Tarzan is like, they said, it's like a massive character, and I was like, no, they aren't. Tarzan is not a massive character. Very few people care about Tarzan. Maybe if you grew up with Tarzan, he's a massive character. But, like, I mean, I'm not that young and I don't care about Tarzan. So, like, I mean, it's like, even younger kids are going to care even less. And so if you're thinking about that, like, longer term, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, those types of characters, I wouldn't be betting on. But now I'm pumping up Crazy Cat. Everybody's gonna go looking for Crazy Cat now. Yes, and yes, hey, I mean, if Golden Age Westerns get real popular, I mean, And honestly, like, it hurts me to say that too, because like I have some golden age westerns that I have for sale. It doesn't help me to say that I wouldn't buy them, but it is how I feel about them. Um, let's see. Says, funny enough, I did the opposite. Wanted to get a reholder in before CGC decides to implement reholder regrading. I mean, if you need the reholder, that's one thing. But for me, I was referring to actually grading, not necessarily a reholder. Like I don't know how many books, maybe like 30 or 40 books right now that I'm ready to send in, and I'm just not sending them. I'm waiting until we get some type of resolution. So I'm not referring to reholders. But even with reholdering, I would still probably wait. Unless you're like really concerned about like you're not going to get the same grade or something like that. But even reholders, I would probably wait. Let's see. All right, so you're 45 years old, not that old, but you are an artist and a cartoonist, that kind of thing. Okay, so yeah, I mean it's in your area of expertise. Um, but yeah, I'm standing by my crazy cat comment. I don't 31,000 seems crazy to me. Uh, let's see. Yeah, like Flash Gordon and other characters that's faded away. Yep, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean Flash Gordon, and then a lot of the like Black Terror, Fighting Yank, these like some of these characters like that were extremely popular in the 40s and 50s, not popular at all anymore. And so you have things where like some of their books have value, but it's largely because they're beating up Nazis or there's some like graphic content on the cover, something very specific that's in addition to that character. And so it's just risky in my opinion to invest in like, because when honestly, like I know some people don't like the use of the word investment, but when you're spending this level of money, you're investing. It's like you're spending 5, 10, 20, 30, a million, like 30,000 up to a million, like these types of numbers, like there is an investment aspect to it. um Yeah, I'm not backing down on Tarzan. So it says you might be wrong about Tarzan. He's a major literary character, and I'm not backing down on Tarzan. Um, and that's why I talked about that where in that prior video where the first Tarzan in comics, I think it was like that large feature 5 used to be. I think it was back in like the 70s or maybe even into the 80s. Was is the same price as Action One. It was considered like same level as Action One, and like a 5.5 for Action One right now, I don't know, probably would sell for what, like 4 million. A 5.5 for large feature 5 now sells for $600. So it's like he's not as popular of a character. Um, and like it's the question of who's spending the money, right? Like who wants to spend that money on that? And if a lot of collectibles, it ties to things you remembered as kids or that kind of stuff. And I think that kind of character is it just fades away. And yeah, for Mickey, I wouldn't be surprised if westerns get some type of like resurgence. It could happen. But yes, it could be like your comment here. You have to remember westerns are very American centric genre, already very American centric hobby, unlike manga and yeah, that's one argument for why like Captain America isn't necessarily as big of a character as like Batman. Like Captain America is like feels like much more like American centric. Like American collectors are more likely to collect those books, which is why like Cap One doesn't sell for nearly as much as like Tech 27. And so, like Tech 27 is a much, much bigger book because it feels a little more universal. Same thing with like Marvel Comics One and those other things. Like it just feels a little more universal. Um, I mean, Archie, Archie is doing okay. So this comment here was lots of Gen X grew up reading Archie, Richie Rich, and I guess who has the disposable cash. Um, I mean, I'm right on that fringe. And I mean, I watched Richie Rich as a kid, but I have zero desire to collect Richie Rich. Archie, though, even though I didn't read Archie as a kid, I have grown to like Archie. There's just something about like, and it's for me, it's largely it's the Betty and Veronica side of it. It's definitely like the good girl art type side of it. It's that those fun covers. That's one of the big appealing sides for Archie to me. But that's something that's grown on me over time. Definitely isn't related to my like anything I grew up with. I think LB Cole westerns could hit soon. You never know. I, I feel like LB Cole, like when you go outside of pre-code horror, it gets a little tough. There was one real, there's no way I'm going to remember which one it was. There was one really big romance sale for LB Cole in this auction. I'm not going to remember which one it was, but I've noticed like LB Cole's tough on romance sales, but that was a really big one. Maybe that's a sign. Maybe people are, they've been so hooked on Matt Baker for a while, they're veering off into some tangential areas. Let's see. Archie don't need money to pull, unlike Richie Rich. I'm not sure what you mean, but or if you mean like, I mean, like my joke with the Richie Rich one on why it went for so much money was like that, like the rich people were like, oh, this is a guy who understands my problems, like my struggles. And so they go out and buy that, that book. But that's just kind of my little like surface level joke on the Richie Rich one. Cause I mean, that to me is still one of the most shocking sales. The Richie Rich number one, $100,000. But yeah, Doc Savage, he was another one that was really big out there and is not anymore. But let's see, did that pulp sell that I was looking at, that Conan? I don't know if it's come up yet. So 94352. Oh, it just sold very recently. So let's check that one out. 943. Yeah, right here. So 6,300. I had priced one earlier. It was a similar grade. I had priced the earlier one at 5,500 and it went for 6,900. So this one pretty similar. That was the interesting thing is that, so let me find that other one because the colors were better on this copy. 92143. So this was the one that sold earlier in the auction. VG. This one was a VG plus. I mean, to me, a better looking copy, sold for a little less. And maybe just kind of shows like the ones that went in that earlier auction, a little more money was available at that time. And this one went higher because, yeah, I mean, I really like just flipping back and forth. Like this is a much nicer presenting copy. I mean, it's got these like little creases on the side here. I don't think there's any resto. Let's see. Make sure there's no resto on it. Yeah, I don't see anything about restoration. I mean, they have it graded higher, VG plus versus a VG. Yeah, I think the person that got this copy, they won the Weird Tales December 1932 competition for this auction. They got the better copy, got it for less, better color strike. Yeah. I like the snake on this cover. I mean, it's first Conan. That's kind of the big thing with it. I mean, I would call Conan more popular than Tarzan, but yeah, I think this is a pretty good pickup by that person. All right. So we've been on here for 2.5 hours. Are there any, before I end this, any other, anyone else that's got any questions, any books they want me to cover, talk about? I mean, looks like we've got a few more books in here coming to the end, but we're almost done. I mean, we're closing out. I mean, hey, why is this in here? Like, what is this? We're closing out with a Darth Vader helmet. We're going to see what that sells for. All right. We're going to stick around and yes, apparently the crazy cat community is strong in my viewers. I do not want to mess with the crazy cat community. So, but yeah, we're going to stick around for this one. We're going to wait and see what this ultimately sells for. It's currently at $372. Albert Watson, Darth Vader, the original helmet, Star Wars, New York City, signed limited edition photographic print. Okay, it's a print. It's not the actual helmet. I thought, man, this thing is huge. Look how big this is. This is person sized. I hope whoever buys this actually looked at that photo. Like if you think you're getting some like little thing, this is not. This is going to come in a massive like crate. Like this must cost a fortune to deliver this thing. All right. Yeah, I want to see what this goes for. A little more details on this. It's from 2005. It says, I think it's so it's signed AP 1 of 2. Or I don't know if that's 1, 2, like signed 1, 2 or 1 of 2. I don't know. Man, that is not small. 60 inches, 5 feet tall. All right. I want to know. I want to know who's bidding on this. Anybody in the chat bidding on this gigantic Darth Vader helmet print? Yeah, I'm curious what the shipping costs on something like this. I don't know if they put any details in here about that. I've never bought I've bought posters from Heritage before, and they come like rolled up in these like, well, if it's I bought one that was like a folded poster that was like it had been folded. Like these are like the original movie posters, and that came actually folded up. So it was in like kind of like a small envelope. But I have bought other posters that come in, they just come in tubes. But this is coming in a big crate. There's no question. Like I feel like right now shipping is probably more than what this thing is actually bid at. So we just got three more before we see what this. Okay, so artist proof 1 of 2. Are you bidding on this, Mark? Sorry, so artist proof 1 of 2. Is this something that you're looking to add to the collection? And then we've got Red Dust Comics says, I work in art shipping and it won't be cheap. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I feel like that's something that if it showed up like on my porch, it's gonna be big out there. And I don't have the wall space. Like I don't have. I feel like you need like 10-foot ceilings at least, like 10, 12-foot ceilings for some piece of art like that. 200. So we're saying Boxcat Keys is saying 200 plus on shipping easily. I mean that doesn't seem half bad. I mean, what is it? Comic Link charges fortune for my shipping just for comic books. Like for shipping, your shipping charges, Comic Link is the worst. Heritage is actually really good. I've actually been very impressed with like how affordable the shipping is for Heritage. Comic Link, man, I feel like I pay through the nose whenever I buy anything from Comic Link for their shipping. But yeah, 3 more. All right, we've got these. We've got this Flash Gordon comic strip going for, 1934, like $1,300. Like I feel like to me, like that's now granted, this isn't the original art, but that's what I feel like Crazy Cat should go for. I'm hitting on Crazy Cat a little bit more again, but yeah, no, I really don't have any interest in having that gigantic Darth Vader on my wall. I'm good. I'm good without having that in the house. I do not have the space for something like that. All right, we got one more after this. We got the Superman Sunday newspaper comic strip from 1939. That's pretty cool. Like 1939, November 1939 Superman comic strip. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. That would be something that'd be fun to have like framed and put up on your wall. How big is that? 15 by 11. Yeah, and very reasonable size. Something that's not gonna take up a huge amount of space in your house. All right, here we go. I got quite a few bids there. We're up at 660 now. So I mean, with shipping, they might be breaking 1,000. But this is such a strange entry. Like when with everything else that's been in this is such a weird entry. Like maybe this was just kind of like something they thought would be fun to close it out with. I don't know. But yeah, still getting bids. Let's see if oh yeah, and I see this Vader, the one to rule them all. Oh man, I made the mistake last night. I filmed a video kind of late last night, and I had finished editing it, and it was like 3 a.m. And I go, I think I'm going to start watching Fellowship of the Ring. so I started watching Fellowship of the Ring. I got to where they got to the like where they got out of the mines of Moria, and I was like, it was like 6 a.m. I'm like, all right, it's time for bed. I couldn't finish it. I could not finish it. But yeah, I've been seeing, like, I don't know why, like, there's something around Christmas. People post so much stuff about Fellowship of the Ring and Lord of the Rings and all that, and I think it finally got to me. I'm like, I got to watch this again. So I started watching it last night. But all right, Vader's still going. He's at $1,200 now, 1320. I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, if you've got, like, again, you need the wall space, right? You need the wall space, you need high ceilings. If you've got big, like, man cave or something like that, I could see this. I could see this going on the wall there. A couple people fighting it out. We're at 1440 now. Somebody's getting this, like, gigantic crate showing up at their house. Hopefully you have the right tools to open that thing. And I mean, let's see. I mean, yeah, nobody wants to give it up. Keep getting more bids. 1560. Oh, now my dogs are coming down to join me. But yeah, this will hopefully we'll see if it ends soon. Man, another one. And so yeah, this is an example where we've got if somebody keeps waiting till the last second, and they let the countdown go, and they're trying to play the mind games that the person thinks they're going to win it. Oh, then we got another. Oh, so now we're getting close. That was the cut bid. So you can see we'd been having the $100 jumps. That person did the cut bid, thought they might sneak in the win, but then the person just bid right back, showing their dominance. And I would be surprised if that's the end of it. Oh man, nope. So this one's jumped up quite a bit. What was this sitting at before it went live? This was, I think, what was that? It was at like $320. Now we're at almost 2,000, over 2,000 now. So definitely there was some interest. There's some money still in the room, for this Darth Vader print. I am not going to bid on it. Yeah. So yeah, sitting at $320, closed. All right. So session is ended. $2,040 finished with the Darth Vader print. And let's see what the question here was. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is awesome. Nothing better than seeing the Ents and Ghost Knights. Yeah, the Two Towers is my favorite of the series. So that's definitely the one that I would be. I'm looking. I need to finish this one so then I can get onto that one. But here you can see the final auction total. And there is still one more session tomorrow that's more original art. So, but through 4 sessions, we're at $18,046,782. Here are, I mean, man, just here's the big numbers up here up top. Superman 1 for 2.3 million, All-Star 8 for 1.5, Amazing Spider-Man 1, 1.38. So we had 3 books that broke the $1 million mark. The Showcase 4 got close, and that Hulk 1, that Hulk 1 was the big shock. That one got close too. But serious auction, lots of cool stuff. See what the final comment here. Market prices will eventually split between old slabs and new slabs. I mean, maybe. I just honestly, my take is that I've already noticed that people are talking about it way less. Like the attention span that's been held for it compared to other CGC drama things that have happened is pretty long. Like it's been about 3 weeks. And a lot of times, like when they removed the notes from the labels and that stuff, like it was like a week. Acetate Gate was like maybe a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks at most. This one's out at 3 weeks, and I'm already like, you get like little snippets, but I honestly think it's going to have very little impact on anything. But that's just my opinion on it. We'll see how it all works out. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining me for this chat. Feel like this is fun going through all of these, and these auctions are really interesting. This was a big way to start the year. I mean, I wasn't sure how this one really was going to go. I mean, we knew from the beginning that this one was full of massive books, like tons of big books, but it could have gone the other way, that nobody bids and you get low prices on everything. But it went the exact opposite. This was a very, very strong auction, and people were out to spend. We'll see how the weeklies go, like if this was kind of an anomaly because this is much higher price stuff, or if the strength continues into the year. But again, thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you in the next one.